Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles. Chapter 2053. In the depths of Nine Heaven Palace. In a courtyard. The great elder was lying on an armchair, while Feng Yuan was standing beside him, pouring out his grievances. Throughout the entire process, the first elder narrowed his eyes and didn't say a word. When Feng Yuan finished, the first elder opened his eyes and said angrily, "This lunatic is too reckless. Immediately send a message to Shangguan Fenglan and tell her to bring the lunatic here." Yes. Feng Yuan was overjoyed and immediately took out an image crystal. Because from the first elder's words, he was prepared to severely punish this lunatic. After receiving the message, Shangguan Fenglan quickly brought the lunatic to the courtyard. "Old man, long time no see." The lunatic didn't feel nervous at all as he swaggered into the courtyard and waved at the first elder with a smile. The first elder raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "Don't be so sloppy with this old man." The lunatic walked to the opposite side of the first elder and sat on the ground. "Speak, why did you call me here? What is it? Don't you know? Usually, when you mess around, this old man will turn a blind eye to it. But this time, you actually killed people on the St. Peak. You killed the 4 people second only to the heaven-ranking disciples. Ignoring the rules of Nine Heaven Palace and running amok. How do you think this old man should punish you?" The first elder said angrily. "Punishment? That's not right. The plot doesn't develop like this. According to the plot, you should reward me." The lunatic frowned. Feng Yuan said angrily, "Lunatic, don't be unreasonable. Killing in public and still wanting to be rewarded? Was he daydreaming?" The lunatic immediately glared at Feng Yuan and said, "Shut up. This old man is talking to this old man. Who are you to interrupt?" "First elder, look at his attitude." Feng Yuan blew his beard and glared. "Don't be angry, don't be angry." The first elder smiled and looked at the lunatic angrily. "Feng Yuan is a hall master. Show this old man some respect." "Yes. Hall master Feng Yuan, I'm sorry." The lunatic picked his nose and said indifferently. Looking at his casual attitude, Feng Yuan was so angry that his nose became crooked. How was this an apology? "Madman, let's get back to the topic. You just said that I should reward you. I don't quite understand what you're saying. Can you explain it to me?" The Grand Elder said. "That Jin Yinchang is abusing his position to avenge private wrongs. Those disciples of the St. Peak are even causing trouble. What kind of scandal is this? You're simply disregarding the rules of our Nine Heavens Palace. As a member of Nine Heavens Palace, I naturally cannot tolerate their arrogance. That's why I killed the leaders of the group as a warning to the rest of the disciples." Madman said righteously. Needless to say. After hearing his words, even Feng Yuan felt that this was the right thing to do. The first elder was also stunned when he heard this. He nodded and said, "It does sound reasonable. That's right. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. They rely on their strength to instigate others to make things difficult for Jiang Haotian and the others. Isn't this the same as rebelling? This kind of people must be punished. Otherwise, if everyone imitates them in the future, wouldn't our Nine Heavens Palace be in chaos?" Madman said. "That makes sense." The first elder nodded and turned to Feng Yuan with a smile. "Feng Yuan, you heard it with your own ears. He did this out of good intentions for our Nine Heavens Palace." First elder, you." Feng Yuan looked at the first elder and Madman couldn't find a reason to refute. "First elder, these years, the disciples below and some of the management have become more and more presumptuous. In my opinion, it's necessary to intimidate them." Shangguan Fenglan cupped her hands and said. The first elder looked at Feng Yuan and asked, "Feng Yuan, what do you think?" "Indeed, we should intimidate them." Feng Yuan nodded helplessly. It was obvious that the first elder was protecting Madman. If they continued to pursue this matter, it might backfire and arouse the first elder's dissatisfaction. Isn't this a perfect solution? The first elder chuckled and looked at Madman. You did a good job this time. You should be rewarded. What? Feng Yuan was dumbfounded. Not only did they not pursue the matter, but they also wanted to reward Madman. Isn't this a little too much? The first elder ignored Feng Yuan's dissatisfaction and asked with a smile, Feng Yuan, how do you think we should reward him? This, Shengguan Fenglan didn't know how to answer. Feng Yuan frowned and suddenly his eyes flashed. He bowed and said, First elder, how about this, let Madman enter the Divine Palace. Divine Palace? Madman was stunned and quickly waved his hand, No, I'm not interested in that damn place. Feng Yuan looked at Madman and said, Entering the Divine Palace is a supreme honor. You should be grateful. I don't need this honor. Madman said disdainfully. Feng Yuan's eyes flashed coldly as he turned to the first elder and said with a smile, First elder, what do you think of my suggestion? The first elder pondered for a moment and said, He is qualified to enter the Divine Palace, but we can't force him. How about this, didn't Jin Yinchang's position as inner elder was removed? Let Madman take over for a while. This, Feng Yuan's body stiffened and he quickly said with a smile, letting him temporarily take over the position of inner elder, isn't it a bit of a waste? The first elder looked at Madman and asked, What do you think? Inner elder, Madman scratched his head and said with a smile, Can I continue to stay in the outer sect? No. My Nine Heavens Palace doesn't raise idle people. The first elder shook his head. Okay. As long as you don't go to the Divine Palace, you can do anything. Madman was helpless. Then it's decided. Feng Lan, you go and send out the appointment letter later. The first elder said. Yes. Shengguan Feng Lan nodded. Send out the appointment letter just like that. This is too childish. Feng Yuan was stunned. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly said, First elder, what about Jin Yinchang? We can't really expel him from Nine Heavens Palace because of this little mistake. The first elder asked, Jin Yinchang is your son-in-law? Feng Yuan nodded. The first elder thought for a while and said with a smile, Then I'll give you face and let him continue to stay in the Deacon Hall and assist Madman in managing the inner sect. Ah! Feng Yuan was stunned. Assist Madman? Wasn't that the same as letting Jin Yinchang be Madman's subordinate? Then would Jin Yinchang still have a good life in the inner sect Deacon Hall? Do you have any objections? The first elder looked at Feng Yuan and asked. No. Feng Yuan hurriedly shook his head. The first elder waved his hand and said with a smile, All right then, go do your own things. Feng Yuan sighed helplessly. He felt like he was a clown jumping on a beam. Not only did he fail to find Qin Feiyang to wash away his shame, but he also ended up in a sorry state. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and turned to look at the first elder. He said respectfully, First elder, there is something I want to ask for your consent. What is it? The first elder was suspicious. Shengguan Fenglan and Madman also looked at him in confusion. Feng Yuan said, This time, I want to increase the difficulty of the recruitment in the resource hall. What do you mean? The first elder was curious. Feng Yuan said, In the past, the lowest requirement was Perfect War God. This time, I want to raise it to Perfect War God. Why? Entering the resource hall to work doesn't seem to have a direct relationship with cultivation, right? The first elder frowned. Feng Yuan said, There is indeed no direct relationship, but there is no harm in raising the standard. The first elder thought for a moment and nodded with a smile, This is actually not a big deal. I'll do as you say. Thank you, first elder. After Feng Yuan finished speaking, he turned around and left quickly. Shengguan Fenglan glanced at Feng Yuan, and a glint flashed across her eyes. She said to Madman, "Madman, you go back first. He must be planning some shady business again." Madman looked at the first elder and Shangguan Fenglan with disdain, then turned around and swaggered away. "This bastard brat is getting harder and harder to discipline." The first elder looked at Madman's back and sighed helplessly. Shangguan Fenglan said, "Actually, what I am most concerned about is, why did he help Jiang Haotian? What's the use of caring? Can he tell you?" The first elder shook his head. Shangguan Fenglan smiled bitterly and said, "First elder, why did you agree to Feng Yuan's request? His decision is obviously targeted at Jiang Haotian." "Of course I know. But during this period of time, Jiang Haotian has caused him to lose soldiers time and time again. If we don't listen to him, I'm afraid he will suspect that we are behind all of this." The first elder laughed. "Then wouldn't Jiang Haotian be unable to enter the resource hall?" Shangguan Fenglan frowned. The first elder said, "Did you notice his cultivation level?" "Cultivation level?" Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. The first elder said, "Yesterday, I received news that he appeared in the treasure hall and had broken through to the perfect war god realm." Perfect war god? Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. Thinking back carefully, it seemed that the aura emitted by this child was really that of a perfect war god. "I don't know, how did he do it? I don't know, is he hiding his cultivation level? But I have a feeling that Feng Yuan raising the standard won't be a problem for him. Besides, even if he doesn't go to the resource hall now, it doesn't matter. Because now, his relationship with Feng Yuan has reached a point of no return. Even if he doesn't go to the resource hall, they will still fight to the death." The first elder laughed. "That makes sense." Shangguan Fenglan nodded. Then, she pondered for a while and said, "There's one more thing." "What is it?" The first elder was suspicious. "Yesterday, my sister Shangguan Qiu sent me a message saying that Jiang Haotian and the vice pavilion master of the treasure hall seemed a little unusual." Shangguan Fenglan said. "The vice pavilion master of the treasure hall." The first elder's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. He said in a deep voice, "Unusual how?" "According to my sister. Originally, she was cooperating with Mu Tianyang. However, when Jiang Haotian met with the vice pavilion master immediately instructed my sister to terminate the cooperation with Mu Tianyang and work with Jiang Haotian instead." Shangguan Fenglan said. "What are they cooperating for?" the first elder asked. Chapter 2054. I wonder if you've heard of the 9-chew yellow dragon pill and the 9-turn dragon blood pill? Shangguan Fenglan asked. "I've heard of it." The first elder nodded. These two pills were refined by Mu Tianyang. And Jiang Haotian can also refine these two pills. Shangguan Fenglan said. "So that's how it is. I really didn't expect that my 9 Heavens Palace had such a powerful person hidden." The first elder whispered, his eyes flickering. Shangguan Fenglan frowned. "First elder, don't you think it's strange that we've never heard of these two pills before?" The first elder pondered for a while and said, "If there's a chance, talk to Jiang Haotian and Mu Tianyang." "Okay." Shangguan Fenglan nodded. "Right. I asked you to investigate their origins, did you find out?" The first elder asked. "No. These two people are like mysteries, there's no way to investigate." Shangguan Fenglan shook her head. "There's no way to investigate," the first elder murmured, frowning. "In the future, you must keep an eye on them for this old man, especially the relationship between Jiang Haotian and the deputy pavilion master." "Okay." Shangguan Fenglan nodded. The first elder smiled and waved his hand. "Then go do your work." Shangguan Fenglan bowed and saluted, then turned and left quickly. 9-chew yellow dragon pill, 9-turn dragon blood pill, these pill formulas, where did they find them? these two people, what kind of origin do they have? The first elder sat alone in the conference hall and pondered. Outside. In less than half an hour, the news of madman temporarily acting as the inner court elder spread wildly in Nine Heavens Palace. It can't be. He killed someone in public. Not only is he not punished, but he is also temporarily acting as the inner court elder. It's really unbelievable. What's the relationship between madman and the first elder? In fact, for someone like madman, temporarily acting as the inner court elder is also a kind of punishment in disguise. It makes sense. Madman is used to being lazy, suddenly letting him manage the inner court affairs. I'm afraid it's hard for him to accept. Wait. What are you all thinking? Are these the main points? Don't you know the temper of a lunatic? Letting him manage the inner sect is simply a disaster for us inner sect disciples. If you didn't mention it, I really wouldn't have thought of this. How are we going to live in the future? Compared to the shock of the outer disciples, the inner disciples were more worried. This was especially true for the disciples of the 10 sacred peaks. This time, the madman killed the golden-clothed man and the others in public, causing them to involuntarily have a shadow in their hearts. Brother, I'm back. Around noon. Fire Lotus ran into cave abode number 1 with a smile. Inside the cave. There was no one there. But before Fire Lotus could finish her words, Qin Feiyang appeared in the cave out of thin air. After leaving the Fire Lotus, he went to the castle with Qin Rushuang to cultivate. What happened? Why are you so happy? Looking at Fire Lotus's excited expression, Qin Feiyang was a bit stunned. Could it be that this girl had really met someone she liked in the Nine Heavens Palace? Did you know? The madman is actually fine. Fire Lotus said. Fine. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Originally, I thought that he would definitely be severely punished this time, but guess what? He actually became an elder of our inner sect. Fire Lotus said. What? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The appointment letter has already been issued. And Shengguan Fenglan also announced to the public that the madman killed people in public because those people gathered to cause trouble. In other words, not only did he not violate the rules, but he also did a good thing. Fire Lotus smiled. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. This madman really had some tricks up his sleeve. Then where is he now? Qin Feiyang asked. Of course, he took office and went to the duty hall. Fire Lotus said. What about Jin Yunchang? Qin Feiyang said. Fire Lotus said, the great elder didn't chase him out of Jiutian Palace, but let him assist the madman in managing the inner sect affairs. Assist the madman? Isn't that the same as becoming the madman's subordinate? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. The madman is now his immediate superior. With the madman's personality, he will definitely have a hard time in the future. Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but sympathize with Jin Yunchang. Having such a boss was simply torture and torment. Also, there's another news. This news might be a bit unfavorable for you. Fire Lotus said again. What news? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The resource hall just posted an announcement, saying that only disciples above Perfection War God can participate in this registration. Fire Lotus said. Above Perfection War God? Qin Feiyang was stunned. This is really bad news. It's strange. I heard from other disciples that the resource hall's minimum requirement was Perfection War God, but why did it suddenly become Perfection War God? Fire Lotus was puzzled. The previous requirement was Perfection War God. Qin Feiyang frowned. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered for a while, then shook his head and sighed. It seems like this is coming for me. Coming for you? It shouldn't be. Feng Yuan didn't know you would be registering. Fire Lotus said. He must be just in case. It's better to be prepared. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. This matter was really difficult to deal with. Although he had enough soul stones now, he still needed time to refine them. After breaking through to Perfection War God, his speed of refining soul stones had also increased. Now, he could refine around 100 soul stones in 2 hours. But even so, the time was far from enough. Because Perfection War God needed to refine 10 million soul stones to break through to Perfection War God. 10 million soul stones wasn't a small number. After careful calculation, it would take at least 270 years. Even in the ancient castle, it would take 270 days. But now, there were only 2 days left before the registration. How could he break through to Perfection War God in 2 days? Buzz. Suddenly, the image crystal rang. Qin Feiyang exhaled and took out the image crystal. A shadow appeared. It was Mu Tianyang. Without wasting any time, Mu Tianyang directly asked, "Do you know about the announcement posted by the resource hall?" "I just heard about it." Qin Feiyang said. "Then do you have any ideas?" Mu Tianyang asked. Because he hadn't broken through to Perfection War God yet. Qin Feiyang said, "I'm thinking about it." Mu Tianyang said, "I have an idea, but I need you to do it." Qin Feiyang was stunned and quickly asked, "What idea? Are you stupid?" "Of course it's the 4 symbols infinite divine pill." Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes at him. "That's right. With the 4 symbols infinite divine pill, what am I afraid of?" Qin Feiyang slapped his head in annoyance, and then a smile appeared on his face. "I don't have the ability to get the 4 symbols infinite divine pill's medicinal ingredients. Even if I did, I wouldn't be able to refine it now, so you have to do it." Mu Tianyang said. "You can't refine it?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Yes. Currently, I don't have a divine level pill fire or a pill furnace." Mu Tianyang said. "So it's like that." Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and nodded, "All right, I'll think of a way." After saying that, he turned off the image crystal. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, "What idea do you have?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, and said, "Right now, I can only ask the Treasure Pavilion's Vice Pavilion Master for help." After saying that, he activated the image crystal and contacted the Vice Pavilion Master. As the largest trading place in the ancient world, the Treasure Pavilion should have the 4 divine beasts' blood essence and the infinite divine fruit. Even if they didn't, they would definitely be able to find them in a short period of time. Chapter 2055. Under Qin Feiyang's anticipation, the Vice Pavilion Master's shadow finally appeared. "So it's you." When he saw that it was Qin Feiyang, a smile crept onto the Vice Pavilion Master's old face. "Greetings, Senior." Qin Feiyang bowed. Huo Lian, who was beside him, also bowed. Looking at Fire Lotus, the Vice Pavilion Master's pupils constricted slightly, but he quickly returned to normal. He looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled hoarsely. "Is there anything you need from me?" "There is indeed something that I need your help with." Qin Feiyang nodded. The Vice Pavilion Master smiled. "If I can help you, I will definitely not refuse." "Thank you, Senior. I need the blood essence of the 4 divine beasts and the Wuji divine fruit." Qin Feiyang said. "The blood essence of the 4 divine beasts. Wuji divine fruit." The Vice Pavilion Master was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, "Which 4 divine beasts are you talking about?" Qin Feiyang said, "Vermilion bird, black tortoise, azure dragon, and white tiger." "So it's them." The Vice Pavilion Master nodded. "May I know if the Treasure Pavilion has these blood essences now?" "Don't worry, I won't take them for free. I'll buy them all at the auction price." Qin Feiyang said. The price is not a problem. But I'll have to ask little Chiu about it first. After all, I haven't asked about the treasure pavilion for a long time. I don't know if they have it or not. The vice pavilion master said. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed and hurriedly cupped his hands. Then I'll leave it to you, senior. It's fine. The vice pavilion master waved his hand and smiled. How many do you need? The more, the better. Qin Feiyang said without hesitation. Because in addition to him, there was also the mermaid princess and the others. It would be best if everyone had a share. After all, a 4 symbols infinite divine pill could save everyone a lot of time. Alright then. I'll call little Chiu over. Wait for my news. After the deputy pavilion master finished speaking, the shadow quickly dissipated. Qin Feiyang also put away the image crystal and turned to look at Fire Lotus. He frowned and said, "Don't you think that this deputy pavilion master is too easy to talk to? He didn't even consider it. It must be because you're popular." Fire Lotus smiled. I'm popular. Qin Feiyang was stunned for a moment before he bitterly smiled. If I had good relations with people, I wouldn't have trouble following me wherever I go. Fire Lotus covered her smile and walked into the living room. There was a coffee table and chairs in the living room. Fire Lotus sat beside the tea table, looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Would you like some tea?" Qin Feiyang slapped his head and said, "If you didn't mention tea, I would have forgotten about the tea leaves that the vice pavilion master gave me." As he spoke, he also entered the guest hall and took out the jade box containing the tea leaves. Fire Lotus also took out the beauties of Qing Hai from her interspatial ring. When she left the treasure house yesterday, she directly stored the beauties of Qing Hai in her own interspatial ring. She didn't give it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang opened the jade box and sniffed it. He showed an intoxicated expression and then said, "Little Chiu, you've been a bit strange recently." Strange? Hearing this, Fire Lotus's body stiffened immediately, but she soon calmed down and asked suspiciously, "What's strange? You run out from time to time without telling us what you're going to do. Tell me honestly, did you really meet someone you like?" Qin Feiyang looked up at Fire Lotus and said, "Someone I like?" Fire Lotus was stunned. Her cheeks under the mask couldn't help but blush. Then she rolled her eyes at Qin Feiyang and said helplessly, "What are you thinking? There's nothing like that." "Then why did you run out?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Just strolling around to see if I can find some place to recover my lost memories." Fire Lotus said. "So that's how it is." Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, "I thought you met someone you like in the Empyrean Palace and were too embarrassed to tell us." Fire Lotus smiled helplessly. "I'm not joking. If you really meet someone you like in the future, you have to tell me. I'll help you check." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Okay. Fire Lotus nodded and said with a pout, "Why do I feel like you can't wait to marry me off now? She's a girl. Sooner or later, she will get married." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Fire Lotus was speechless. Trash of the 10 St. Peaks, come out for lousy. Suddenly, an arrogant shout sounded in the sky outside. Fire Lotus paused and said in surprise, "That's Madman's voice. What does he want to do? Let's go and see." Qin Feiyang said with a smile, then got up and walked outside. Fire Lotus also hurriedly put down the teapot and ran out. When the two of them walked out of the cave, the disciples of the other caves had already come out. They stood at the entrance of their caves and looked at the sky, their eyes filled with fear. The madman was standing in the void above with an old and proud look on his face. Jin Yinchang was also there. But compared to before, he was much more obedient now, like a little follower, respectfully standing behind Madman. Madman put his hands behind his back and looked at the disciples of the Saint Peak arrogantly. "You all know about the appointment letter above, right? Everyone nodded. From today onwards, Laozi is an inner sect elder. In other words, from this moment onwards, your little lives are in Laozi's hands. Now, all of you listen to Laozi and remember every word Laozi is about to say. Laozi is not like that trash Jin Yunchang. If you dare to be as presumptuous as before, then don't blame Laozi for being ruthless. Understand? Madman shouted. Understood. Everyone hurriedly nodded. Who could afford to offend this fierce person? Very good. Madman nodded and shouted, Trash, lead the way. Jin Yunchang was stunned. I'm talking to you, didn't you hear me? Madman turned his head and glanced at Jin Yunchang. Jin Yunchang was unable to voice out his bitterness. If he knew it would be like this, he would have just left 9 Heaven Palace. He asked with a bitter face, Where are we going? Nonsense. We were going to the Red Gold Divine Tower and Purple Gold Divine Tower. These Earth-ranking and Heaven-ranking disciples are also people who need to be taught a lesson. Madman sneered. Good, good, good. Jin Yunchang nodded and hurriedly ran to the front to lead the way. After Madman swaggered away, Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and smiled bitterly, A new broom sweeps clean, this saying is indeed true. As for the other disciples, they sighed endlessly. Their days in the future would be difficult. Fire Lotus said, Actually, I feel that First Elder making Madman an inner sect elder is a very correct decision. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang said. Think about it. These inner sect disciples, especially the 10 Saint Peaks, as well as the disciples on the Heaven ranking and Earth ranking, which one of them isn't a shocking monstrous figure? Without a bit of courage and means, it's impossible to control them. Fire Lotus laughed. That's reasonable. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, But are the disciples on the Earth ranking and Heaven ranking also under the control of the inner sect? Fire Lotus said, I've inquired before, they are indeed under the control of the inner sect. Then there will be a good show to watch. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Madman's back. This guy ran to the Red Gold Divine Tower and Purple Gold Divine Tower, there would definitely be a good show. Whine. But suddenly, the image crystal that he had placed in his bosom rang. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He originally wanted to watch the show, but he didn't expect someone to send a message. And it was very likely to be the Vice Pavilion Master. He shook his head with some regret and quickly entered the cave residence. But Fire Lotus stayed outside, looking at Madman and the 2 divine towers with interest. Chapter 2056. Qin Feiyang, who had returned to his cave residence, took out the image crystal. Buzz. An old man appeared. Who else could it be but the Deputy Pavilion Master? Qin Feiyang asked, Senior, how is it? I've asked Miss Chiu. There are Wuxia Immortal Fruit, Azure Dragon, Black Tortoise, and Vermilion Bird, but there is no White Tiger. The Deputy Pavilion Master said apologetically. Qin Feiyang was a little disappointed when he heard this. He asked, How much Wuxia Immortal Fruit and Azure Dragon are there? Young friend, please forgive me. I can't reveal the exact number. This is the rule of the Treasure Pavilion. I can only say that I can give you 30 Wuxia Immortal Fruits. I can give you 20 drops of Azure Dragon and the other 2 Divine Beasts' blood. The Deputy Pavilion Master smiled. So much? Qin Feiyang was surprised and asked, Is it a total of 20 drops, or 20 drops each? The Deputy Pavilion Master said, Of course it's 20 drops each. Qin Feiyang was secretly speechless. 20 drops as soon as he opened his mouth. This treasure pavilion was indeed rich. The Deputy Pavilion Master said, Although my treasure pavilion doesn't have White Tiger's blood, I do have a way, but I don't know if you dare. Go ahead. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. The Deputy Pavilion Master smiled meaningfully. Feng Yuan has a divine beast White Tiger by his side. Feng Yuan. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He didn't expect that this old thing had actually subdued a divine beast white tiger. However, if it were someone else, he would be confident. But this Feng Yuan, how could he be willing to give him the white tiger's blood? Not to mention giving it to him, even if he spent a lot of money to buy it, he would definitely not sell it to him. The deputy pavilion master said, "May I ask, what do you want to do with the 4 divine beasts' blood and Wuxia immortal fruit?" "It's nothing. I just want to do research." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Research?" The deputy pavilion master was surprised. This answer was really unexpected. Wait. The everlasting divine fruit was a medicinal ingredient. Could it be that this child wanted to research some kind of medicinal pill? "Little friend, do you still want the everlasting divine fruit and the blood essence of the azure dragon and the other 2 divine beasts?" The vice pavilion master asked. "Yes. Of course." Qin Feiyang hurriedly nodded and said, "However, this junior only needs 20 infinite divine fruits. Can you calculate how many divine crystals it would cost?" This price, the vice pavilion master pondered for a moment and smiled. "Why don't you talk to little Chiu directly? After all, I've been in seclusion for too long, and I don't know the current market situation." "That works too." Qin Feiyang nodded. The vice pavilion master laughed hoarsely, "Then this old man will let her go and prepare." "Thank you, senior." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. "It's nothing." The deputy pavilion master waved his hand, and the shadow quickly dissipated. Feng Yuan, Qin Feiyang also put away the image crystal and sat on a chair, his face full of worry. It was probably harder than ascending to the heavens to get the white tiger's essence blood from Feng Yuan. Might as well discuss with Mu Tianyang. Perhaps he will have a way, Qin Feiyang mumbled and took out the image crystal again. Buzz. Before long, Mu Tianyang's shadow appeared. Qin Feiyang said, "I've asked the people of the treasure pavilion. They have the infinite divine fruit, azure dragon, black tortoise, and vermilion bird essence blood, but they lack the white tiger essence blood." "Even the treasure pavilion doesn't have the white tiger essence blood?" Mu Tianyang raised his brows. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Who are you asking about? Is he reliable?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, "I don't know much about this person, but I think he should be reliable." "Should be? Should be?" Mu Tianyang was speechless. Qin Feiyang said, "However, although the treasure pavilion doesn't have it, I've found a way." "What way?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, "Feng Yuan has a white tiger with him." "Ah." Mu Tianyang was stunned. There were so many people in the Empyrean Palace. Why did it have to be this old thing? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, "I can't think of a way at the moment, so I'm looking for you to discuss. Do you have any bad ideas?" "Bad ideas? Don't look down on me." Mu Tianyang said angrily. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "If I look down on you, why would I look for you?" Mu Tianyang said, "Then I don't like what you said." Okay. I apologize. I was wrong just now. I didn't choose my words carefully. Is that okay?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. What a calculative person. Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes at him and said, "This Feng Yuan, we definitely can't do anything. We can only let the Great Elder and Shangguan Fenglan come forward." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly, "Do you think the 2 of them will help? If they don't help, then we won't go to the resource hall. Let's see what they can do." Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. "Don't say angry words. If we don't go to the resource hall, how can we get the vein of soul?" Qin Feiyang said. Headache. Mu Tianyang rubbed his forehead. Suddenly, his eyes flashed as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, why don't we kidnap Feng Zijuan? Kidnap Feng Zijuan? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Look, Feng Wenhai only has 2 sons. One is Gongzi Feng, the other is Feng Zijuan. But this Gongzi Feng, because of his birth, is not liked by the Feng family. Kidnapping him will not make much sense. But this Feng Zijuan is different. Whether it is Feng Yuan or Feng Wenhai, they both love him very much. If we kidnap him and threaten him, I think Feng Yuan, this old thing, will definitely obediently hand over the essence blood. Mu Tianyang laughed. It is indeed a bad idea. Qin Feiyang whispered, then frowned and asked suspiciously, how do you know that Gongzi Feng is not liked? Who do you think I am? Can you hide it from my eyes? I have investigated him long ago. Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang said, then you also know the relationship between Gongzi Feng and me? Not much, I know a little. Mu Tianyang laughed. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips and said, looking at your face, I want to beat you up. I am your partner now. It is your loss to beat me up. Mu Tianyang looked at him proudly. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes, pondered for a moment, and nodded. Okay, we will kidnap Feng Zijuan. Wait. Don't talk about us. It is you who will kidnap him. I don't want to interfere in this matter. Mu Tianyang waved his hand. You want the 4 symbols infinite divine pill, but you don't want to kidnap Feng Zijuan. How can there be such a good thing in the world? Qin Feiyang sneered. Don't worry. I just said that I don't want to interfere. I didn't say that I will not interfere. Mu Tianyang said with a smile. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Mu Tianyang and said, from what you said, you want to take the opportunity to blackmail me? Don't forget, we are now grasshoppers on the same rope, tied together in life and death. Of course I didn't forget. But kidnapping Feng Zijuan is not a small matter. Mu Tianyang said with a smile. Qin Feiyang said impatiently, don't beat around the bush. Just say what you want to say. Mu Tianyang stretched out 3 fingers and said, I want 3 symbols infinite divine pills. So many? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Is it a lot? Mu Tianyang asked. Qin Feiyang said angrily, nonsense, I only planned for the 2 of us. Now you want 3. Where can I find them? Even my cooperation with Shengguan Qiu was cut off by you. How can such a small matter be difficult for you? Mu Tianyang said with a smile. Qin Feiyang frowned. Mu Tianyang said helplessly, 3 is really not a lot. Don't be so stingy, okay? I am stingy. Qin Feiyang suddenly became angry. He suddenly raised his eyebrows and said, why do you want 3? Isn't it just you and Mu Qing now? Mu Tianyang said jokingly, have you forgotten your fiancé so quickly? Qin Feiyang's face darkened. He said in a low voice, you should know my ancestor's character. He would never make such a ridiculous marriage agreement. Of course I know. But Guosweki doesn't know. Until now, she still thinks that the marriage agreement is real. Mu Tianyang said with a smile. What's the point of doing this? You know my strength. With Guosweki's little tricks, she will never be able to threaten me. Qin Feiyang frowned. Not necessarily. Mu Tianyang smiled. Qin Feiyang was very angry. He said, fine, I promise to give you 3 symbols infinite divine pills, but you have to promise me one thing. Say it. Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, when you get the white tiger blood essence, it will all belong to me. What do you want? Mu Tianyang was surprised. Don't worry about that. Qin Feiyang said. This, Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and nodded helplessly, right now, only you can refine the 4 symbols infinite divine pills. I can't do anything without you. Deal, when do you want to act? There's no time to lose. Now. Do you know Feng Zijuan's cave residence? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. He is the inner sex number 1 Sword Peak's number 10 cave residence. Mu Tianyang said. With his strength, he can enter the number 1 Sword Peak. Qin Feiyang was surprised. If you can enter the first sacred peak, what's so strange about him entering the number 1 Sword Peak? Mu Tianyang pouted. You're jealous. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, now that Frenzy and Jin Yinchang have gone to the Red Gold Divine Tower and the Purple Gold Divine Tower, let's hurry and meet in the Inner Sex Deacon Hall and kidnap Feng Zijuan before they come back. Okay. Mu Tianyang nodded. The two turned off the image crystal at the same time and left their respective cave residences. Qin Feiyang flew to Fire Lotus's side, looked up at the two divine towers, and asked, what's the situation? Frenzy went directly into the Red Gold Divine Tower. I wonder what's the situation inside. Fire Lotus shook her head. Qin Feiyang said, then don't look. Let's go and do something important. What is it? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Qin Feiyang leaned over to Fire Lotus's ear and whispered, kidnap Feng Zijuan. What? Fire Lotus exclaimed. Shoo, Qin Feiyang hurriedly made a shushing gesture. Fire Lotus nodded, looked around vigilantly, and said, why do you want to kidnap him? Of course there's a reason. You'll know later. A mysterious smile appeared on Qin Feiyang's face. Bringing the Fire Lotus with him, he returned to his cultivation dwelling, closed the door, and entered the Black Tortoise world. Controlling the Black Tortoise world, he left the cultivation dwelling without anyone noticing, flying toward the inner court Deacon Hall. Chapter 2057. Deacon Hall. A purple-clothed youth with his hands behind his back stood on the cliff on the left side of the Deacon Hall. His dark eyes were extremely deep. It was Mu Tianyang. After entering the ancient world, that innate emperor aura had been concealed by him. But even so, the aura he exuded could not be ignored. It was as if he was the son of a god. Suddenly, a powerless force descended. Mu Tianyang disappeared without a trace in an instant. Black Tortoise World. Medicine Field, Courtyard. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus stood side by side, while Mu Tianyang stood opposite them. Looking at this familiar land, Mu Tianyang was filled with emotions. Thinking back to when he was in the Black Tortoise world, too many things had happened that he could not forget. A moment later, Mu Tianyang retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang. To be honest, sometimes I am really jealous of you. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. What is there for me to be jealous of? Mu Tianyang said, Mu Tianyang, no matter if it is talent or talent, I am not inferior to you and Qin Batian. But why do the heavens always favor you? It is not that the heavens do not favor you, but because you did not cherish it. Thinking back to the past, as an emperor, you could get whatever you wanted. Who could compare to what you had at that time? But what about you? For your own selfish desires, you were cruel and heartless, harming the common people. If not for this, would my ancestor have rebelled against you? Would he have overthrown the Heavenly Sun Empire? Don't always blame others, reflect on yourself. Qin Feiyang said. You are becoming more and more like your ancestor, even the tone of your voice is the same. Alright, let's leave these things for later, take care of the present first. During this period, have you found Qin Batian's whereabouts? Mu Tianyang asked. I have asked many people, but no one knows. However, Madman did reveal a little, but what he revealed made me feel that something was wrong. Qin Feiyang said. Madman knows. Mu Tianyang was surprised. And not only does he know about my ancestor's situation, but he also knows my true identity. But for some reason, he actually helped me keep it a secret. Qin Feiyang was suspicious. What? Why are you so careless? Mu Tianyang's face turned pale. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, I'm already being very careful, okay? I don't even dare to fight with others. How did that madman know? Mu Tianyang was puzzled. When I sparred with him on Turtle King Island, I was accidentally injured by him. When he saw the purple gold dragon blood, he guessed my identity. Furthermore, he knows Lu Xingyang. Qin Feiyang said. He also knows about Lu Xingyang. Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows. The ancestors' matter is getting more and more complicated. I have to be more careful in the future. How about this? If someone comes to find trouble with me in the future, will you help me? Qin Feiyang said. You wish. Mu Tianyang sneered and said impatiently, cut the crap. Hurry up and go to the 10th cave abode. Hearing the news about Lu Xingyang, he couldn't help but feel irritated. Because the people he hated the most in his life were Qin Batian, Lu Xingyang, and the demon ancestor. But after so many years, none of the three had died. And there was no doubt. Qin Batian and Lu Xingyang were definitely stronger than him now. Because the two had been cultivating in the ancient world for 10,000 years. And him? He was thinking of ways to remove the seal, take back his divine body, and repair his soul. His cultivation didn't improve at all. In other words, he had wasted 10,000 years of his life. So, the hatred in his heart could never be eliminated. The 10th cave abode was below the duty hall. Soon, Qin Feiyang controlled the Black Tortoise realm and came to the door of the 10th cave abode. The stone door was tightly shut. However, this couldn't stop the Black Tortoise realm. Because as long as there was a small gap, the Black Tortoise realm could crawl in. The interior of the cave abode was much more spacious than the cave abode of the outer sect, but it was still a little worse than the cave abode of the Saint Peak. But Feng Zijuan's cave abode was quite luxurious. The ground and walls were inlaid with gorgeous jade, gems, and so on. In the cultivation room, a young man sat cross-legged on the ground, cultivating with his eyes closed. It was Feng Zijuan. Even if he was cultivating, there was a trace of hostility between his brows. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, not to mention anything else, this Feng Zijuan's strength is still quite strong. And Qin Feiyang nodded. Early Divine Lord, one level stronger than Yuan Bo and the Snow Python. If this kind of person was placed in the Forgotten Continent or the Great Qin Empire, he would definitely be a godlike existence, invincible. But in this ancient world, there was nothing strange about it. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at Fire Lotus with a smile, wait for us here. All right. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang took out 2 illusory form pills. He took one himself and threw one to Mu Tianyang, instructing, when we go out later, directly cripple his qi. Mu Tianyang nodded, took the illusory form pill, and asked, where do you plan to place him? The Black Tortoise realm. Qin Feiyang said. The two of them disguised themselves as a burly man. Mu Tianyang then took out the blood blade, as if suddenly thinking of something, he raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, asking, Chang Shui, do you want to come back? No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. That's a pity. Chang Shui has been robbed, and the castle has been sealed. Now, other than the slaughter domain, you don't have any other trump cards. Mu Tianyang looked at him gloatingly. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, just the slaughter domain is enough to take your life. Huh, Mu Tianyang laughed. This, he did not dare to deny. He had witnessed the terror of the slaughter domain with his own eyes, but to open it, one had to pay a painful price. He believed that Qin Feiyang would not open it easily. After crippling his qi, immediately put away the blood blade, lest your identity is exposed. After all, during the assessment, Feng Yuan saw the blood blade. Qin Feiyang said. Mu Tianyang rubbed the blood blade and said jokingly, "Do you think he can go back alive this time?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Since he is an enemy, as long as there is a chance, I will immediately eliminate him." Killing intent flashed in Mu Tianyang's eyes. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank, and he said with a smile, "It is indeed in line with your character, are you ready?" "Yes." Mu Tianyang nodded. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, restrained his aura, and swept up Mu Tianyang, and appeared behind Feng Zijuan in an instant. Killing intent surged in Mu Tianyang's eyes, and he immediately waved the blood blade, piercing into Feng Zijuan's qi. Feng Zijuan immediately screamed. But at the same time, Qin Feiyang stepped forward and covered Feng Zijuan's mouth, and then immediately appeared in the black tortoise world again with Mu Tianyang. But this time, the place they appeared was not the herb field, but the depths of the desert of the departed spirit mountain. The whole process only took an instant, and Feng Zijuan became their captive. In the depths of the desert, the wind whistled, and yellow sand filled the sky. In the air above a sand dune, Mu Tianyang had already put away the blood blade. Qin Feiyang also let go, and Feng Zijuan, who was still in a daze, fell to the ground miserably, and his painful screams followed. Mu Tianyang looked at Feng Zijuan, and said with disdain, "So easy, a new monarch god is not much. Look at how cocky you are. If it wasn't because he was not vigilant at all, how could he be taken away so easily?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Because no one would have thought that someone would dare to commit murder in Nine Heaven Palace. Feng Zijuan was the same. And in the eyes of Nine Heaven Palace disciples, the cave was the safest place. So, as long as one was in the cave, they would not be vigilant. "Who are you? You dare to plot against me in Nine Heaven Palace, did you eat the guts of a leopard?" Hearing the conversation between Qin Feiyang and Feng Zijuan's eyelids twitched, and he endured the pain, and looked up at the two angrily. "That's right. We ate the guts of a leopard. What can you do? Call for help. Why don't you try? See if anyone will come to save you." Mu Tianyang smiled playfully. Feng Zijuan's eyes were filled with bewilderment as he immediately scanned his surroundings. Where was this place? There was no desert in Nine Heaven Palace, right? Wait a minute. Could it be that this was a space divine object? Damn it! What are you doing? Do you know my identity? You are courting death. Feng Zijuan looked at Qin Feiyang and Feng Zijuan angrily. Of course I know. You are Feng Yuan's grandson. Mu Tianyang laughed. Since you know, you still dare to plot against me? I advise you to let me go immediately, or today will be the day of your death. Feng Zijuan laughed sinisterly. You are still so arrogant, you are indeed a fool. Mu Tianyang shook his head and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, and asked, "What's next?" Qin Feiyang smiled, "Of course it is to send a letter to Feng Yuan." Boom! Just as Qin Feiyang spoke, Feng Zijuan's eyes surged with killing intent, and a terrifying divine sense emerged, carrying a shocking killing intent, and rushed towards Qin Feiyang and Feng Zijuan. Courting death. Mu Tianyang's eyes flashed coldly, and he was about to take out his blood blade. You don't have to do it. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, and with a wave of his hand, the rule force fell from the sky and blasted towards the divine sense. Boom! Feng Zijuan suddenly held his head and screamed. What kind of power was this? It could actually shatter his divine sense. Amazing! Mu Tianyang looked at the power of laws, a hint of greed involuntarily flashed across his eyes. Although the Black Tortoise World's rule force was not comparable to the Miracle's rule force, according to his judgment, it could even pose a threat to a perfect Sir God. In other words, As long as it was in the Black Tortoise world, Qin Feiyang was an invincible existence. Of course. If he encountered someone strong, the rule force would naturally not be of much use. However, the Black Tortoise world was a true small world, and it would slowly grow with time. As the Black Tortoise world grew, the power of the rule force would gradually increase. When the Black Tortoise world became a large world like the ancient world, then the rule force would be unstoppable. Facing such a small world, who would not be tempted? However, Mu Tianyang also knew that it was basically impossible to take the Black Tortoise world from Qin Feiyang. He could only think about it. Chapter 2058. After shattering Feng Zijuan's divine sense, Qin Feiyang waved his hand again and the power of rules immediately turned into a cage, imprisoning Feng Zijuan. Immediately afterward, he stepped into the cage and took away Feng Zijuan's interspatial ring. Bastard! Give me back my interspatial ring! Feng Zijuan pounced on Qin Feiyang like a madman. How can I take back something that is already in my hands? Qin Feiyang sneered and the power of rules emerged, blocking in front of Feng Zijuan. Then he ignored Feng Zijuan and looked down. Damn it! He didn't know if he didn't see it, but he was shocked when he saw it. He even cursed. What's there, what's there? Mu Tianyang landed in front of the barrier and looked at Qin Feiyang excitedly. Qin Feiyang coughed and shook his head, nothing. Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows and said angrily, why are you so excited? It's really nothing, just a lot of herbs. Qin Feiyang said and put away the interspatial ring. Bastard, are you going to take it all for yourself? Mu Tianyang saw this and suddenly shouted angrily. Qin Feiyang said, it's just some herbs, what are you going to do with it? Mu Tianyang's veins were bulging and he said in a deep voice, I don't believe there are only herbs, show me the interspatial ring. It's really nothing, why don't you believe me? Can't there be more trust between people? Qin Feiyang was helpless. Who are you to Qin Feiyang? How can I believe you? Let me tell you, the things in his interspatial ring must be divided equally, or I will expose your identity later. Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips, took out the interspatial ring and threw it to Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang grabbed the universe ring. He lowered his head and checked it for a while. Then, he chuckled. Immediately after, he raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, his eyes full of disdain. I told you that you can't be trusted. You actually want to take all these soul stones for yourself. Not much. 50 or 60 million at most, not even 100 million. Qin Feiyang said. 50 to 60 million isn't a lot. Since you're so disdainful, why don't you give all these soul stones to me? Mu Tianyang said. Don't even think about it. Equally. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. 50 to 60 million gold coins would be 20 to 30 million gold coins, which was enough to nurture 2 perfect stage martial immortals. How could he give it all to Mu Tianyang? Wait. Guyong said before that Feng Yuan was bending the law for personal gain and embezzling a lot of money. This Feng Zijun is his grandson. He will definitely give him a powerful divine artifact to protect himself. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. He couldn't let Mu Tianyang know about this. Otherwise, he would definitely ask him to split the spoils. Let's go. Qin Feiyang left the barrier and smiled at Mu Tianyang. Then, he appeared in the herb field with Mu Tianyang. How was it? Fire Lotus looked at the two of them and asked. Mu Tianyang chuckled and said, Brother Qin and I went personally. Is there anything that we can't handle? Amazing. Fire Lotus gave him a thumbs up. Mu Tianyang waved his hand and Mu Qing appeared out of thin air. Then, he threw the universe ring to Mu Qing and said, count them and divide them into 2. Okay. Mu Qing nodded respectfully. Qin Feiyang said, Fire Lotus, go and help count them. Understood. Fire Lotus giggled and walked towards Mu Qin. Mu Tianyang was speechless and said, Brother Qin, do you have to be so careful? Qin Feiyang said, who knows if Mu Qin will cheat? Is this what you mean by trust? Mu Tianyang looked at him with disdain. The point is, you don't trust me either. Don't say these useless things. Take out a brush and ink. Qin Feiyang said. Mu Tianyang waved his hand and a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone immediately appeared on the stone table in front of him. Qin Feiyang grabbed the brush and glanced at Mu Qin. He said, I remember that your space divine item was smashed into pieces by the inner demons. Mu Tianyang said lightly, does the ancient world lack space divine items? Sure enough, you're going to kill and rob again. As an imperial emperor, don't you feel ashamed to do such things all day long? Qin Feiyang looked at him with disdain. I'm happy. What can you do? If there's a chance, I'll kill you and snatch the ancient castle. Mu Tianyang sneered. Then you'll have to wait. Maybe one day, you'll really get the chance. By the way, there's something I haven't told you. I've brought the space-time gate with me. Qin Feiyang smiled mockingly. He reached out and pressed the paper on the table, writing rapidly. Looking at Mu Tianyang's expression, it was extremely interesting. The space-time gate, this was his divine item. Now that Qin Feiyang said it, it was obvious that he was deliberately angering him. I've been wondering. Where did you get the space-time gate and the Pill Sutra back then? Is it related to the Blood Blade? Qin Feiyang asked as he wrote. The Sea of Reincarnation. Mu Tianyang said. The Sea of Reincarnation? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. This is something that happened a long time ago. At that time, the Tianyang Empire was still around. My brother Mu Tianjun, the demon ancestor, Lu Xingyang, and Qin Batian were also there. At that time, we were just like you now, young and aggressive, not afraid of anything. I remember one morning, in the deepest part of the Sea of Reincarnation, a loud noise suddenly sounded and alarmed this continent. At that time, many people entered the Sea of Reincarnation to investigate, including the few of us. When we rushed there, we found that an ancient site had appeared. In the end, we found a total of 5 divine items in that ancient site. 2 of them were the Space-Time Gate and the Pill Sutra. Mu Tianyang said. 5. Qin Feiyang was shocked and said, what about the other 3? Mu Tianyang said, of the other 3 divine items, you've seen 2 of them. The first is the Lu family's sky-stealing mirror. Sky-stealing mirror? Qin Feiyang was stunned. You haven't seen it before? Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Wait. I seem to have heard second grandpa and the others mention it before, yes. When we came out of the divine site and were looking for the whereabouts of the demon ancestor, they mentioned something about the sky-stealing mirror. However, I didn't see it with my own eyes. Qin Feiyang said. This sky-stealing mirror is similar to Mu Qing's all-seeing eye. However, the sky-stealing mirror of the Lu family is not the real one. Mu Tianyang said. Not the real sky-stealing mirror. What does that mean? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. In other words, the sky-stealing mirror of the Lu family is the same as the space-time gate in Mu Qing's hands. It's an imitation. Some special places can't be peeped at. But the real sky-stealing mirror is omnipotent. No matter where you hide, you can find it. It's simply unbelievable. Mu Tianyang said. So that's how it is. No wonder the sky-stealing mirror couldn't find the whereabouts of the demon ancestor when he was hiding on the demonic dragon island. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and asked, then who has the real sky-stealing mirror? Mu Tianyang said, Lu Xingyang. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, what about the other one? Mu Tianyang said, the other divine item is with you now. With me? Qin Feiyang was shocked. 3,000 incarnations. Mu Tianyang said. What? 3,000 incarnations. Qin Feiyang's face was blank. Mu Tianyang said, don't you think these 3,000 incarnations are terrifying? Of course. Qin Feiyang said without hesitation. He had 3,000 incarnations and naturally knew how terrifying they were. Just like the battle with the demon ancestor on the demonic dragon island. At that time, the demon ancestor activated 3,000 incarnations, and he had no power to fight back at all. If it weren't for the eye of heaven that could copy all attacks, he would have to open the slaughter domain to block it. Mu Tianyang said, as for the last divine item, it's in the hands of your ancestor. Actually, I don't know what it is. How can you not know? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Because I've never seen him take it out. At that time, when we found these 5 divine items, they were all in a jade box. You also know that things in ancient ruins like this are definitely not ordinary, so it's impossible to take it all for yourself. After some discussion, we decided that no one is allowed to open the jade box. It's all up to your luck to choose one. I chose the alchemy scripture. My brother, Mu Tianjun, chose the gate of time and space. The demon ancestor and Lu Xingyang chose the 3,000 incarnations and the sky-stealing mirror respectively. As for what your ancestor chose, I don't know. I'm afraid that even the demon ancestor and Lu Xingyang don't know. Mu Tianyang said. So that's how it is. Ancient ruins, Qin Feiyang murmured. He didn't expect that such a thing had happened in the sea of reincarnation before. Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, then where did this ancient ruin come from? I don't know. After we left, the ancient ruin disappeared without a trace. And since then, it hasn't appeared again. Mu Tianyang said. It's really amazing. Qin Feiyang murmured, and his hands stopped moving. He said with a smile, it's done. Mu Tianyang took a closer look and was immediately amused. The words on it were crooked, as if they were written by a 5-year-old child. It was very ugly. This way, I don't have to worry that Feng Yuan will recognize my handwriting in the future. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. After all, he still had to work in the resource hall in the future, so writing was inevitable. If he didn't change his handwriting now, Feng Yuan would definitely be able to recognize it at a glance. You're a little smart. Mu Tianyang sneered. The general content of the paper was, Feng Zijuan is in our hands. Prepare 20 drops of white tiger blood essence and trade at the west gate of Sky Dragon City tonight. In addition, don't spread it, or we'll kill the hostage. 20 drops of white tiger blood essence. After reading it, Mu Tianyang couldn't help but be dazed. He originally thought that Qin Feiyang only wanted 5 or 10 drops at most, but he didn't expect him to have such a big appetite. He actually wanted 20 drops. We had an agreement just now. I'll give you 3-4 symbols infinite divine pills, and all the white tiger blood essence will belong to me. Qin Feiyang said. Mu Tianyang raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, a trace of a bitter smile on his face, and sighed, I've been tricked by you again. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and asked, do you know where the resource hall is? Yes. Mu Tianyang nodded. Then lead the way, send it to Feng Yuan. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Chapter 2059. The resource hall was also between the inner and outer sect, not far from the battlefield. It was located at the peak of a giant mountain. Not long after, the Black Tortoise Realm descended above the resource hall. The resource hall had a total of 10 floors. It was a black hall that had been around for a long time, emitting an ancient aura. In front of the entrance of the resource hall, there was a square. The square covered an area of about half a mile. Disciples came and went, entering and exiting. There were outer sect disciples and outer sect disciples. Mu Tianyang said, according to what I know, Feng Yuan's resting room is on the second floor. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, then what are the other floors for? The first floor is naturally the reception area. For example, accepting missions, exchanging medicinal herbs and soul stones are all on the first floor. And the 3rd to 10th floors are the resource hall's storerooms. Mu Tianyang said. They're all storerooms? Qin Feiyang was shocked, and said, the wealth of this resource hall is a bit terrifying. Of course. It can be said that if we obtain the treasures in this resource hall, we won't be able to spend it all in our lifetime. Mu Tianyang laughed. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, and said, to be able to find out so much, you couldn't have been interested in the resource hall for a long time, right? Aren't you tempted? Mu Tianyang asked. Tempted. Qin Feiyang nodded, and then laughed, but I still prefer the spirit vein. Actually, it's not just the upper floors. There are also storerooms under the resource hall. And it is said that the storerooms below are all filled with divine arts and artifacts. Mu Tianyang said. Amazing. Qin Feiyang was secretly speechless. This resource hall was simply an inexhaustible treasure. The Black Tortoise realm sneaked into the resource hall without anyone noticing, and quickly entered the second floor. The second floor was a spacious hall. At this moment, a red-haired old man was sitting alone on a chair. There was a hint of haggardness between his brows, as if he was resting with his eyes closed. It was Feng Yuan. Mu Tianyang snorted coldly and said, this old thing is quite comfortable. The affairs of the resource hall are basically handled by the people below. As the hall master, he naturally has nothing to do. But I'm guessing that he's thinking of something to plot against us again. Qin Feiyang smiled. Mu Tianyang said, if there is a chance, we must get rid of this person. Otherwise, there will be no end of trouble. Qin Feiyang nodded. Grandfather. Just as Qin Feiyang was about to send out the letter, a cry rang out. Following closely. A fat man with a big head and big ears ran up from downstairs and entered the hall. This was Feng Yuan's grandson, Jin Fatso. Is something the matter? Feng Yuan asked without opening his eyes. Jin Fatso said respectfully, the announcement has been posted. Even if Jiang Haotian wants to come to the resource hall, he can't register. As expected, they're here for me. Qin Feiyang mumbled. N. Feng Yuan nodded and asked, then how's your father's situation now? Jin Fatso sighed and said, what good can come out of following that lunatic? It's all this old man's fault. This old man shouldn't have let him target Jiang Haotian. Feng Yuan blamed himself. No. This has nothing to do with grandfather. It's all Jiang Haotian's fault. If there's a chance, I'll definitely make him pay the price. Jin Fatso said gloomily. Feng Yuan suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Jin Fatso. He said in a deep voice, you'd better not find trouble with him. Why? That's my father. Father is in such a state. As his son, how can I sit back and do nothing? Jin Fatso said. Zijuan, Zihan, Wenhai, and your father fell into his hands one after another. Do you think with your little ability, you can be his opponent? If you go to him, you'll just be asking for humiliation. Feng Yuan said. Jin Fatso was a little unconvinced. Feng Yuan said, all right, don't do anything for the time being. Wait for an opportunity. Wait for an opportunity. Jin Fatso was suspicious. Jiang Haotian is arrogant and will make a mistake sooner or later. As long as he makes a mistake, this old man will be able to seize this opportunity to get rid of him. As for your father, it's only temporary. After all, with the lunatic's strength, it's impossible for him to stay in the inner sect forever. Sooner or later, he will enter the divine palace. Feng Yuan said. Divine palace, that's not right, grandfather. With the lunatic's cultivation, shouldn't he have entered the divine palace long ago? Why is he still staying in the ninth heaven palace? Jean Fatso was suspicious. He doesn't want to go. The great elder didn't force him. Feng Yuan said. Speaking of which, what is the relationship between the lunatic and the great elder? I have a feeling that the great elder is too protective of him. Jean Fatso frowned. This old man also doesn't understand. I also investigated their relationship, but there was no result. This old man estimates that in the entire ninth heaven palace, only the two palace lords know about the relationship between the great elder and the lunatic. Feng Yuan sighed. Jean Fatso's eyes turned and he said in a low voice, there are rumors outside that the lunatic is the illegitimate son of the great elder. Could it be true? Don't talk nonsense. Do you know what the consequences will be if this sentence falls into the ears of the great elder? I'm afraid that even this old man can't protect you. Feng Yuan's expression changed as he shouted. When Jean Fatso heard this, his pupils shrank and his face was filled with panic. Watch your mouth and leave. Feng Yuan waved his hand. Grandson will take his leave. Jean Fatso bowed respectfully and turned to leave. Listening to Feng Yuan's words, the lunatic's cultivation seems to have surpassed a perfect divine lord. Inside the black tortoise world. Mu Tianyang retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang. Surpassed a perfect divine lord, no wonder he dares to be so presumptuous. But what I'm more curious about is, what is the relationship between the lunatic and the great elder? Even Feng Yuan doesn't know him, he's not an ordinary mystery. Qin Feiyang whispered. Could it really be the son of the great elder? Mu Tianyang was surprised. The son of the great elder, Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and shook his head. I don't think it's possible. Why do you say that? Mu Tianyang asked. The great elder has already lost a son. If he had another son, why would he hide it? Qin Feiyang said. Lost a son? Mu Tianyang was stunned and puzzled. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said, there's no need to hide this matter from you. In fact, the great elder once had a son who was the previous resource hall master, but he is now dead and died in the hands of Feng Yuan. This, Mu Tianyang was stunned. This was really big news. Say, if the lunatic is really his son, why would he hide it? And I don't think it's his grandson. Qin Feiyang said. That's true. If it's his son or grandson, he'll be happy. Mu Tianyang nodded his head. I guess it's because the lunatic's identity is special, so the great elder hid his identity and took care of him. Qin Feiyang whispered. This nine-heaven palace is really an interesting place. Everyone has a little secret in their heart that they can't see the light of day. Mu Tianyang smiled. Who doesn't have a little secret? Aren't you the same? Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the letter he prepared before left the black tortoise world and landed on the ground in front of Feng Yuan. Looking at the letter that appeared out of nowhere, Feng Yuan's expression couldn't help but be stunned. He bent down and picked it up and opened it suspiciously. Boom! Immediately. A terrifying divine aura erupted like a volcano. What's going on? The disciples on the first floor of the resource hall and the square were all shocked as they looked up at the second floor. Grandfather, what's the matter? Jean Fatso immediately ran up and looked at Feng Yuan in shock. Feng Yuan was silent and his face was gloomy to the extreme. Jean Fatso looked at the letter in Feng Yuan's hand and carefully walked forward. When he looked down, his expression changed. How could this be? Someone actually kidnapped Feng Zijuan in the Nine Heavens Palace. Jean Fatso said in a deep voice, Grandfather, this must be done by the Nine Heavens Palace. Of course I know it's the Nine Heavens Palace. But who is it? Do you know? Feng Yuan said angrily. Jean Fatso shook his head. Feng Yuan's eyes flashed with killing intent and said, go to Zijuan's cave and confirm it. Yes. Jean Fatso nodded his head and immediately turned to leave. Wait. Don't make this matter public. When the disciples outside ask, just say that this old man was practicing a divine art and accidentally released his aura. Feng Yuan said. Why? It's such a big matter. It's better for us to let everyone know, especially the great elder and the others know. Jean Fatso was suspicious. Feng Yuan waved the letter and said angrily, didn't you see it? Don't spread it or they'll kill the hostage. They dare. Jean Fatso said in disdain. Feng Yuan was furious and shouted, they dare to kidnap Zijuan in the Nine Heavens Palace. What do you think they don't dare to do? Yes, yes, yes. Seeing Feng Yuan's anger getting bigger and bigger, Jean Fatso didn't dare to say anything more and turned to run out. What a pig head. Feng Yuan stared at Jean Fatso's back and then released his divine sense to cover the entire hall. No one. No spatial divine item. Then how did this letter get here? Feng Yuan frowned. In fact, Qin Feiyang and the others were still in the hall, but Feng Yuan's divine sense couldn't capture the black tortoise world. This move really worked. Mu Tianyang smiled. Qin Feiyang looked at him mockingly and said, how can your rotten idea not have any effect? You should thank me for this rotten idea. Otherwise, let's see how you can get the white tiger's essence blood. Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes. Yes, yes, yes. You're amazing. I admire you. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Then, he controlled the Black Tortoise realm and left the resource hall in an imposing manner. He's leaving just like that. Mu Tianyang was stunned. What's the point of staying here? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Since the letter had been delivered, of course he had to leave. And if nothing unexpected happened, Feng Yuan would send someone to the first St. Peak to find him. So he had to go back and make arrangements in advance. Not long after Qin Feiyang left, Jean Fatso rushed back. How is it? Feng Yuan hurriedly asked. I didn't see Zijuan. But there are some bloodstains on the ground. Jean Fatso said in a deep voice. Damn it, damn it. Who is so daring to commit murder in the Nine Heavens Palace, kidnapping my grandson? Feng Yuan was furious. Jean Fatso thought for a while, and said in surprise, could it be Jiang Haotian? Jiang Haotian? Feng Yuan was stunned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Go to the first St. Peak immediately and see if Jiang Haotian is in the cave residence. If not, then it might be him. If he is, then he can't be ruled out. Think of a way to sound him out. Okay. Jean Fatso nodded and hurriedly left. Chapter 2060. The First Sacred Peak. Inside the first cave abode. Mu Tianyang sat on a chair in the living room, looking around, and said enviously, your cave abode is too big. It's useless. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. That's true. After all, you usually cultivate in the castle. Speaking of the castle, can you agree to a request of mine? Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. What request? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, let me and Mu Qin also enter the castle to cultivate. Qin Feiyang was stunned and sneered, don't even think about it. Don't be so heartless. If it weren't for the inner demons shattering my space divine object with a sword, would I be begging you now? Besides, we are now in a cooperative relationship, which means that we are partners. If Mu Qin and I become stronger, it will also be good for you. Mu Tianyang said. Don't. I can't afford to offend someone like you. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand. Letting these two people cultivate in the castle was simply inviting a wolf into the house. Besides, he and these two people were only cooperating temporarily. After all, they were still enemies. Sooner or later, they would fall out with each other. Therefore, it would never be possible for them to cultivate in the castle. So stingy. Mu Tianyang pursed his lips. Dong! Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. So fast. Mu Tianyang looked at the stone door and muttered. Qin Feiyang smiled and gently waved his hand. The stone door quickly opened. A familiar figure suddenly appeared. Who else could it be but Jin Fatso? You seem to be Feng Yuan's grandson. The two looked at Jin Fatso and deliberately showed a trace of surprise. In the cave, Jin Fatso frowned imperceptibly and cupped his hands. I am Jin. I wonder if Brother Jiang would allow me to enter the cave for a chat. Of course. I can't wait to welcome Senior Brother Jin. Please, come in. Qin Feiyang got up to greet him. This is too enthusiastic. Jin Fatso muttered and strode into the cave. He looked at Mu Tianyang and smiled. Brother Mu is also here. I hope I didn't disturb the two of you. No. Brother Jiang and I are just sitting together, drinking tea, chatting, and reminiscing about old times. Mu Tianyang smiled. Jin Fatso said, so the two of you are really old friends. Brother Mu and I are indeed old friends, but we had a little conflict in the past, but it's fine now. Look, we are just like Brother Qin. Qin Feiyang walked beside Mu Tianyang, putting his arm around his shoulder and smiling. Mu Tianyang glanced at Qin Feiyang's arm on his shoulder and thought, is there a need to do this? This was obviously done on purpose for Jin Fatso to see. Although they had reached a cooperation now, outsiders did not know their real relationship. And now, after Qin Feiyang made such a scene, it was undoubtedly equivalent to officially announcing that they were good friends, good brothers. In this way, in the future, when Feng Yuan attacked Qin Feiyang, he would definitely teach him a lesson too. Qin Feiyang laughed and ignored Mu Tianyang. He looked at Fatso Jin and asked, Senior Brother Jin, isn't the resource hall busy? Of course. Jin Fatso said. Since you are busy, why do you have time to come to us? Don't tell me you are here to settle accounts with us. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Settle accounts? Jin Fatso was slightly taken aback. He looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and said, where did this come from? In the morning, your father, Sai. I am really sorry about this matter. I asked Senior Brother Feng Zi to come over purely to help me out, so that the disciples of the 10 sacred peaks would not make things difficult for me. But I didn't expect that in the end, it would actually involve your father and even implicate him, causing him to receive such a serious punishment. To be honest, I really feel sorry in my heart. Qin Feiyang blamed himself. So you are talking about my father's matter. Jin Fatso suddenly smiled and waved his hand. I can't blame you for this matter. It is indeed my father's lack of consideration. Otherwise, how could there be so many things? Thank you for your understanding, Brother Jin. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands. You are welcome. Jin Fatso waved his hand repeatedly and glanced at the cave abode. He asked with a smile, Brother Jiang, Brother Mu, have the two of you been in the cave abode all this time? Of course. We have been drinking tea and chatting. Why do you ask, Senior Brother Jin? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Nothing. Hasn't there been a lot of friction between our Feng family and you recently? So I thought of coming to apologize, and I hope that Brother Jiang can let bygones be bygones and turn from enemies to friends. Jin Fatso smiled. No. I, Jiang Haotian, may not be strong, but I am magnanimous. Besides, I am also in the wrong. Just like the conflict with senior brother Feng Zijuan in the treasure pavilion. In fact, thinking about it, I was too impulsive at that time. If I could endure it, then all these things wouldn't have happened. To be honest, I have always wanted to find senior brother Feng Zijuan and reconcile this matter. But I have been too busy recently and can't find the time. And I am also worried that senior brother Feng Zijuan may not forgive me. Qin Feiyang sighed. It's a small matter, a small matter. Another day, I will treat all of you to a few drinks at the Jade Zither house. Let's laugh and forget about our enmity. Jean Fatso smiled. Thank you, senior brother Jean. Qin Feiyang hurriedly cupped his hands and thanked him. It's fine, it's fine. Alright then, you guys continue chatting. I will go back to the resource hall first. Jean Fatso got up and smiled. I will send you off. Qin Feiyang also got up. No need, no need. You guys continue chatting. Jean Fatso waved his hand, then turned around and strode away with a smile. This Fatso is quite tactful. If Feng Zijuan could be like him, how would he end up like this? Mu Tianyang secretly smiled. Qin Feiyang said, haven't you heard of this saying? Every Fatso has potential. After Jean Fatso left, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and closed the cave-dwelling stone door. Then, he led Mu Tianyang into the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and asked with a smile, how was it? Did you split it? Yes. Fire Lotus nodded and smiled. Mu Qing and I each got more than 25 million soul stones, more than 100 million divine crystals, and many herbs and elixirs. With that, Fire Lotus handed the interspatial ring in her hand to Qin Feiyang. This interspatial ring naturally belonged to Feng Zijuan. Mu Qing also handed an interspatial bag to Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang glanced at it for a moment before putting it away. He then looked at Qin Feiyang and laughed heartily. This can be considered a victory at the start of the battle. It is indeed a good sign. Qin Feiyang nodded and handed the interspatial ring to Fire Lotus, saying, this interspatial ring should be useful. Go to the castle and take out everything inside. Okay. Fire Lotus nodded. Time flew by. Night fell and evening approached. Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing stayed in Qin Feiyang's cave dwelling and did not leave. Because they were worried that Qin Feiyang would play tricks, they stayed in the cave dwelling and waited until they got the 4 symbols infinite divine pills before leaving. Qin Feiyang didn't mind either. He continued to chat with her. Buzz. Suddenly, Mu Qing's image crystal rang. Mu Qing was slightly stunned. She took out the image crystal and a trace of suspicion flashed through her eyes. Who is it? Mu Tianyang asked. I seem to have established a contract bridge with Guosweki and Shangguanqiu in the ancient world. Mu Qing thought. Guosweki is cultivating in the space divine item. That should be Shangguanqiu. Why is she looking for you now? Mu Tianyang frowned. Qin Feiyang also looked at Mu Qing in confusion. I don't know either. Mu Qing shook her head. Mu Tianyang said, put it through and see what she wants. Mu Qing glanced at Qin Feiyang and said, don't we need to leave? Mu Tianyang said lightly, why should we leave now? Yes. Mu Qing nodded and activated the image crystal. A graceful figure suddenly appeared. It was Shangguanqiu. Shangguanqiu was slightly stunned when she saw Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang sitting together. What's the matter? Mu Qing looked at Shangguanqiu and asked with a straight face. What do you mean by this? Not long ago, you were fighting to the death. Now you're sitting together drinking tea? Shangguanqiu asked instead of answering. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted together. The relationship between these few people was really hard to fathom. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, no discord, no concord. Don't take me for a fool. Your relationship is definitely not that simple. But it's good. I'm looking for you too. Sheng Guanqiu looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang and said. Looking for us too. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other in surprise. Sheng Guanqiu said, I've booked a room in Yulan Tower and would like to invite you two to a banquet. Invite us to a banquet? Qin Feiyang and Sheng Guanqiu looked at each other. What was this woman up to? Mu Tianyang said, don't tell me it's a banquet at Hongmen. Sheng Guanqiu said jokingly, if it's a banquet at Hongmen, would you dare to come? What a joke. Why wouldn't we dare when someone invites us to a banquet? Brother Jiang, don't you think so? Mu Tianyang said with a smile. But Qin Feiyang didn't answer. He looked at Sheng Guanqiu and asked, when? Now. Sheng Guanqiu said. Now, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He nodded and said with a smile, okay, let's go. Sheng Guanqiu didn't expect them to agree so easily. She was stunned for a moment and said with a smile, then I'll wait for you two at Yulan Tower. See you there. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. Chapter 2061. After Sheng Guanqiu's image disappeared, Mu Qin put away the image crystal and looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang. She frowned and said, why did you agree? Aren't we going to trade with Feng Yuan tonight? We agreed to Sheng Guanqiu's invitation because we're going to trade with Feng Yuan. Qin Feiyang said. That's right. Mu Tianyang nodded. What do you mean? Mu Qin was puzzled. Mu Tianyang asked, answer me first. Where is the place where we're going to trade with Feng Yuan? Outside the west gate of Sky Dragon City. Mu Qin said. That's right. To trade with Feng Yuan, we have to leave Ninth Heaven Palace. And to leave Ninth Heaven Palace, we have to go through the stairway to heaven. But the stairway to heaven has the ability to distinguish the real from the fake. We can't use the Space Divine item or the Black Tortoise realm. Then, people will know that we've left Ninth Heaven Palace. At that time, Feng Yuan will naturally suspect us. Although we can find an excuse, it will be hard to get rid of suspicion. But it's different now. We left Ninth Heaven Palace because of Sheng Guanqiu's invitation. With Sheng Guanqiu's help, even if Feng Yuan suspects us, he won't dare to do anything to us. Mu Tianyang smiled. I see. Mu Qin was enlightened. Qin Feiyang got up and said with a smile, Sheng Guanqiu is not an ordinary person. We can't let her wait for too long. That's right. Mu Tianyang nodded and looked at Mu Qin. You don't have to participate in what's going to happen next. Yes. Mu Qin nodded respectfully. Mu Tianyang waved his hand and sent Mu Qin into the Space Divine item. Then, like Qin Feiyang, he left the cave abode and flew toward the stairway to heaven. Resource Hall. Feng Yuan sat on a chair, holding a jade bottle in his hand. His face was gloomy. Duh. Following a series of hurried footsteps, Jean Fatso ran in and reported respectfully, Grandfather, I just received news that Jiang Haotian and Mu Tianyang have left Nine Heavens Palace. Killing intent flashed in Feng Yuan's eyes as he said in a deep voice, of all the times to leave, they just had to leave now. Could it be that they really kidnapped Zijuan? I think it's possible. Jean Fatso nodded. If it really is them, then they will definitely go to Sky Dragon City. Send a message to your uncle right now. Tell him to immediately arrange some people to guard the 4 city gates. You must keep a close eye on them for me. Feng Yuan said. Yes. Jean Fatso replied respectfully. The so-called uncle was naturally Feng Wenhai. Outside the northern city gate. 2 young men wearing the robes of the Nine Heavens Palace walked towards the city gate while talking and laughing. They were Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice with a smile. Do you think that Feng Yuan knows that we have already left Nine Heavens Palace? Since Jin Fatso came to find us during the day, it definitely means that he is already suspicious of us. Naturally, he will send people to secretly monitor us. I'm afraid that the moment we left the cave, he already received the news. Right now, there might already be people waiting for us at the city gate. Qin Feiyang said as he scanned the crowd at the city gate. It was now evening. There were many people entering and leaving the city. Therefore, if they were to seriously look for them, they would definitely not be able to find them. They could only wait for the other party to appear. While they were talking, the two arrived at the city gate. Entering and exiting the city gate had to be checked. However, when Qin Feiyang and Chu Yunsheng arrived before the city gate, when the guards saw the flame pattern on their clothes, they did not dare to stop them in the slightest. They hurriedly stepped aside and respectfully watched the two of them enter the city. This was the treatment of the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace. After the two entered the city, they carefully paid attention to their backs. Soon, they found a suspicious person. It was a middle-aged man in black with the cultivation of a perfect war god. He looked like he was leisurely shopping, but he kept a distance and followed behind them. As expected, we are already being watched. Mu Tianyang shook his head. I was afraid that Feng Yuan would not send anyone. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and asked, do you know where Yulan Restaurant is? Of course I do. The boss behind Yulan Restaurant is none other than Shangguanqiu. It's not far from the treasure pavilion. Mu Tianyang smiled. Shangguanqiu. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched and said speechlessly, Feng Zihan opened Yuqin Restaurant, and Shangguanqiu also opened Yulan Restaurant. Are these women bored out of their minds? You don't understand. Although Yuqin Restaurant and Yulan Restaurant are opened by them, they basically let their subordinates take care of them. And a restaurant like this makes a lot of money, Wang Yao said. Especially the two of them. One is the number one person on the Heaven Leaderboard of Empyrean Palace. The other is the manager of the Northern Region General Pavilion. And they both have powerful forces behind them. They are also beautiful. So many people will give them face and go to their restaurant to spend money. This is the way to make money. Mu Tianyang said. Money, Qin Feiyang murmured and sighed, it seems that no matter who it is, they can't escape the fate of being bound by money. Of course. What does it cost money to do now? Mu Tianyang said. Gradually, the sky had completely darkened. A waning moon slowly rose. At this time, Sky Dragon City was the most lively. After a busy day, it was natural to relax at night. Some drank and some had fun. Many disciples of Empyrean Palace could even be seen on the streets. Men and women were in pairs. It was a peaceful scene. Yulan Restaurant. It was already crowded, and the laughter could be heard from afar. Young Master Jiang, young Master Mu, the restaurant master has been waiting on the top floor for a long time. When Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang walked to the door, a young woman wearing a long dress with the words Yulan Restaurant immediately came up to them. Lead the way. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Please. The woman extended her hand and spoke respectfully. Then, she walked in front and brought Qin Feiyang and Chu Feng to the top floor. Yulan Restaurant had a total of 10 floors. Except for the hall below, the other floors were all private rooms. Look, isn't that Jiang Haotian and Mu Tianyang? They came here to have fun too. Wait, something's not right. They are going to the top floor. What's going on? The top floor is where Shangguanqiu entertains his guests. Did Shangguanqiu invite them? In the hall. There were also many disciples of Nine Heavens Palace. When they recognized Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang, they immediately whispered to each other. As for the black-clothed middle-aged man who had been following behind Qin Feiyang and the other man, he stopped at the entrance. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other man and frowned. Then, he retreated into a dark alleyway on the other side. What? They went to Yulan restaurant? Or Shangguan Qiu invited them? Soon. Feng Yuan received a message from Feng Wenhai. It's true. It doesn't seem to be them. Feng Wenhai said. If it's not them, who could it be? Among the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace, besides lunatic, it seems that only they have the guts. Feng Yuan frowned. Could it be lunatic? Feng Wenhai asked. Impossible. We have no grudges with lunatic. Why would he kidnap Zijuan? Besides, lunatic doesn't need the white tiger essence blood. Feng Yuan said. What should we do now? Feng Wenhai was worried. Don't worry. I'll definitely save Zijuan. Continue to keep an eye on Yulan restaurant. I have a feeling that this matter has something to do with Jiang Haotian and Mu Tianyang. Feng Yuan said. Yes. Feng Wenhai nodded. Yulan restaurant. On the top floor, in a luxurious private room. Shangguan Qiu sat quietly. On the dining table in front of her, there was a large table of delicious food and 2 pots of good wine. But she turned a blind eye to these. She lowered her head as if she was thinking about something. House Master, Young Master Jiang and Young Master Mu have arrived. Dong dong. Suddenly. There was a knock on the door. Then. A woman's voice sounded outside. Let them in. Shangguan Qiu was stunned. When she came back to her senses, she looked up at the door and smiled. The door was pushed open. The young woman who led the way retreated to the side and said respectfully, Please come in, young masters. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang entered the private room. They glanced around and looked at the food and wine on the table. Mu Tianyang said with a smile, I didn't expect that I, Mu Tianyang, would be able to enter the top floor of Yulan restaurant one day. Shangguan Qiu glanced at Mu Tianyang and then looked at the young woman standing outside the door. She waved her hand and said, No one is allowed to come in without my permission. You may leave. Yes. The young woman responded respectfully. Then she closed the door and turned to leave. Shangguan Qiu got up and looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang. She said with a smile, Please take a seat. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Mu Tianyang laughed, found a seat at random, and then sat down. Qin Feiyang walked to the front of the dining table with a slightly stunned expression. There were 4 sets of bowls and chopsticks on the table. He sat next to Mu Tianyang. Looking at Shangguan Qiu, he asked suspiciously, Did you invite someone else? Yes. Shangguan Qiu nodded. Who? Qin Feiyang frowned. Mu Tianyang also noticed the 4 sets of bowls and chopsticks on the table. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Shangguan Qiu. We don't like to drink with strangers. Don't worry. You are not strangers at all. Shangguan Qiu stood up and poured wine for both of them while chuckling. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other. A trace of suspicion flashed in their eyes. Not strangers. Who could it be? Chapter 2062. The 3 of them sat at the table and waited quietly without eating. Shangguan Qiu sensed that something was wrong and said, Why don't you 2 drink first? Good idea. We can't just sit and wait. Qin Feiyang, come, let's have a toast. Mu Tianyang raised his glass and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. You like to drink too? Qin Feiyang frowned. As the saying goes, being drunk is like singing. Life is short. Who doesn't like to drink a few glasses? Mu Tianyang smiled. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said lightly, Forget it. I'm not interested in this. I knew it. Mu Tianyang smiled, minding his own business as he picked up the wine cup and sniffed it. His eyes lit up. He couldn't wait to put the glass to his mouth and tasted it gently. His face immediately showed an intoxicated expression. Is it that bad? Qin Feiyang was speechless. No matter how good the wine was, it tasted the same to him. He would rather drink a few glasses. Sheng Guanqiu glanced at Mu Tianyang and then at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Young Master Jiang, this is the best wine in Yulan restaurant. Ordinary people can't drink it. Are you sure you don't want to try it? Then I'll give you face and try it." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He raised his glass and poured it into his mouth. "Brother Jiang, you're such a brute. This wine should be savored slowly. Especially a good wine like this. You can only taste it carefully." Mu Tianyang said disdainfully. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him and looked at Sheng Guanqiu, saying, "There's nothing special about it. It's about the same as the ordinary wine I used to drink." Sheng Guanqiu's mouth twitched. She wasn't exaggerating earlier. This wine was indeed the best wine in Yulan restaurant. Many people couldn't taste it even if they spent a lot of money. Even in the entire northern region, it was rare to see it. But now, this guy in front of him actually said that it was similar to other cheap wines. It seemed like he had met someone who didn't know anything about wine. "Miss, he doesn't understand." "I do, but," Mu Tianyang chuckled at Sheng Guanqiu. Then, he swirled his wine glass and said meaningfully, "Miss, you're treating us with such good wine. You must have an ulterior motive." "No, no, no." Sheng Guanqiu hurriedly waved his hand. "The wine is good, but you can't drink too much." Mu Tianyang smiled and put down his wine glass. He looked up at Sheng Guanqiu and said, "Let's not beat around the bush. Why did you invite us?" "Some time ago, something unpleasant happened between us, so I wanted to invite the two of you to a banquet to apologize." Sheng Guanqiu smiled. "Something unpleasant? What is it? Why didn't I know about it?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. "Brother Mu, you really know how to play dumb. Don't tell me you're not angry at all when I suddenly terminated our cooperation. And Brother Jiang, I'm really sorry for shutting you out. Master and Deputy Pavilion Leader always taught me that even if we can't make a deal, we can still be friends. I really shouldn't have made such a mistake." Sheng Guanqiu sighed. Qin Feiyang and Sheng Guanqiu looked at each other. "So it's about this. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it." "Me too." The two of them echoed each other. "Forgotten." Sheng Guanqiu sneered secretly. How could such a thing be forgotten so easily? However, given the current situation, he still had to accept it. "The two of you are really magnanimous. I admire you." Sheng Guanqiu got up and poured Qin Feiyang and Sheng Guanqiu's wine glasses to the brim. Then, she filled her own wine glass to the brim. Then, she put down the wine pot and picked up her wine glass. Looking at the two of them, she smiled and said, "So let's forget about it with a smile." "Okay. Forget about it with a smile." Mu Tianyang grabbed the wine glass and got up with a smile. "Let's skip the pleasantries. I hope we can cooperate happily in the future." Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them, picked up his wine glass and said with a faint smile, "Of course." Sheng Guanqiu nodded. The three of them clinked their glasses gently and drank it all in one gulp. "It seems that you have reconciled." Just as the three of them put down their wine glasses and sat down, a faint laughter suddenly sounded. This voice, Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were shocked. This voice was too familiar. It was Shengguan Fenglan. Just as the voice fell, a woman in a light purple dress appeared out of thin air in the private room. Who else could it be but Shengguan Fenglan? "Sister." Sheng Guanqiu immediately went up to her. Shangguan Fenglan rubbed Shangguan Qiu's head dotingly and said with a smile, "Thank you for your hard work." "It's nothing." Shangguan Qiu shook his head. Mu Tianyang looked at the two sisters and said through voice transmission, "Brother Qin, it seems that the person who wants to treat us to a banquet is not Shangguan Qiu." "Yes." Qin Feiyang secretly responded. Anyone who was not a fool could see that it was Shangguan Fenglan who wanted to see them. However, he was a little depressed. If Shangguan Fenglan wanted to see them, she could have summoned them directly in Ninth Heaven Palace. Why did she have to come to Yulan restaurant? Just as Qin Feiyang was deep in thought, Shangguan Fenglan led Shangguan Qiu to the table and sat opposite them. "Greetings, Hallmaster." Qin Feiyang and Shangguan Qiu came back to their senses and quickly got up to bow. "Outside, I am not the Hallmaster of the Law Enforcement Hall and you are not disciples of Ninth Heaven Palace. We are just like ordinary people, so there is no need to be so polite." Shangguan Fenglan waved her hand. The two of them looked at each other and returned to their seats. Shangguan Fenglan smiled and said, "You must be wondering why I asked you to come out now." Qin Feiyang and Shangguan Qiu nodded. "Two reasons. First of all, you and my sister did have some conflicts in the past, so I want to be a peacemaker and let these big things become small and small things become nothing. Secondly, I have some questions that I want to ask you in private. I hope you can answer me truthfully." Shangguan Fenglan said. Although her tone was very calm, there was a strong sense of oppression that made Qin Feiyang and Shangguan Qiu breathless. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and said, "Hallmaster, please ask. If we can answer, we will naturally answer." In other words, if they could not answer, it was useless even if she forced them. Shangguan Fenglan looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Did you and Feng Zihan make a deal in private?" Qin Feiyang fell silent. Shangguan Fenglan said, "Silence means consent. I know. No matter how I quibble, I can't fool you. Yes. I did make a deal with her. However, this will not affect our cooperation, nor will it affect my determination to eradicate the Feng clan." Qin Feiyang said. "Very frank. Then what's the deal?" Shangguan Fenglan asked. 4 billion soul stones, 4 pinnacle divine artifacts, and 4 pinnacle divine techniques. Qin Feiyang said. "What?" Shangguan Qiu couldn't help but gasp when he heard this. Even Shangguan Fenglan was a little stunned. There were so many soul stones. There were even divine artifacts and divine techniques. No wonder this guy let Feng Wenhai go. Who would be able to resist such temptation? Actually, Feng Zihan had already made such a request before he showed the third video. But at that time, I didn't agree because I was determined to get rid of Feng Wenhai. After all, we have planned and worked so hard for so long. Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan asked curiously, "Then why did you agree later?" "Because of you and the Grand Elder." Qin Feiyang said. "Me and the Grand Elder?" Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. "Don't be angry if I tell you." Qin Feiyang said. "Go ahead." Shangguan Fenglan said. "Because your attitude made me a little uncomfortable. I can understand if you're hiding in the back without doing anything without any evidence. But at that time, I took out ironclad evidence, and you had every reason to order to kill him on the spot. But what did you do? You looked on coldly and didn't care about the matter. You gave me the right to kill Feng Wenhai. Aren't you treating me like a gun?" Qin Feiyang said. "So, you agreed to Feng Zihan's condition and let Feng Wenhai go because you were angry with us?" Shangguan Fenglan said. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Amazing. On the one hand, you ruined Feng Wenhai's reputation. On the other hand, you obtained such a large amount of treasure. On the other hand, you also checkmated me and the Grand Elder. What a brilliant method." Shangguan Fenglan said with a smile. There was a hint of killing intent in her expression. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Wait. Suddenly, Shangguan Fenglan raised her eyebrows and said in a deep voice, "How do you know that the Grand Elder has something to do with this matter?" One had to know that all this time, she and Qin Feiyang had met alone, and the Grand Elder had never appeared. It's not hard to guess. You and Feng Yuan are both hallmasters of Empyrean Palace. If there was no one behind you, would you dare to make a move on him? And as far as I know, the 10 great elders of Empyrean Palace, except for the Grand Elder, don't care about worldly affairs and cultivate in seclusion. So, of course, this person is the Grand Elder. Of course, at first I was just guessing, but now seeing your reaction, it's finally confirmed. Qin Feiyang said. He didn't dare to say that he was spying on Shangguan Fenglan. Because if Shangguan Fenglan knew that he was secretly spying on her, she would definitely fly into a rage. Shangguan Fenglan looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. After a while, she shook her head and smiled, as expected of the person I chose, "You have a brain." But then she changed the topic and said, "But if you're too smart, it may not be a good thing." The threat in her words was obvious. She was warning Qin Feiyang not to play such tricks in the future. Naturally, Qin Feiyang could also tell. He said, "This disciple will remember." Shangguan Fenglan smiled faintly, looked at the two, and said, "Another thing, where did you get the 9 tunes yellow dragon elixir and the 9 transformation dragon blood elixir?" Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang frowned and turned to look at Shangguan Qiu at the same time. Shangguan Qiu looked at Qin Feiyang and Shangguan Qiu's eyes and began to panic inexplicably. Shangguan Fenglan said faintly, "You don't have to look at her, just answer my question." Qin Feiyang suppressed the anger in his heart and looked at Shangguan Fenglan, saying, "These 2 elixirs were jointly developed by Mu Tianyang and I, developed by you?" Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. Chapter 2063. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Shangguan Fenglan frowned and said, "It's not that I doubt you, but can you really develop this kind of elixir?" This was equivalent to creating a brand new elixir recipe. Even those old antiques who had lived for countless years couldn't do this, let alone these 2 young people in front of her. Brother Jiang didn't lie to you. We both liked to refine elixirs and study elixirs since we were young. I remember one night 50 years ago, we got together to drink tea and chat as usual. But suddenly, Brother Jiang asked a question. Since the red fire glaze elixir exists in this world, why can't there be other elixirs that can improve one's cultivation level? We discussed for a while, and then we hit it off and started to study this kind of elixir. We spent 15 years on it. During that time, we really worked hard. I don't know how many elixir furnaces we blew up. In the end, God didn't let us down. We finally developed 2 kinds of elixirs, the 9 Chu Yellow Dragon Elixir and the 9 Turn Dragon Blood Elixir. Mu Tianyang smiled and said with pride on his face as if it was real. "You really developed it?" Seeing the sincerity on their faces, it didn't seem like they were talking, but Shangguan Fenglan just couldn't believe it. So did Shangguan Qiu. Researching a new kind of medicinal pill, this was simply a fantasy. Qin Feiyang sighed and said, "To be honest, I still regret developing these 2 kinds of elixirs." Why? The 2 sisters looked at him suspiciously. If this was true, it would be a shocking achievement, destined to be famous for thousands of years. How could he regret it? Brother Mu and I have always been on good terms, even as close as brothers. But after developing these 2 kinds of elixirs, we gradually began to have differences. What I mean is that these 2 kinds of elixirs can benefit the world. It's better to announce it to the public and share it with the world. Brother Mu, what you mean is that we worked so hard to develop them. Why should we share them with others? Later, our differences became bigger and bigger, almost to the point of falling out. Qin Feiyang sighed. No wonder your relationship is so complicated. No wonder, when you came to me to cooperate, Mu Qin also ran out. Sheng Guanqiu was suddenly enlightened. Qin Feiyang, although it's a lie, you don't have to elevate yourself and belittle me, do you? Mu Tianyang said angrily. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice, am I wrong? You're that kind of person. All right. I won't stoop to your level. Mu Tianyang snorted. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled proudly, then looked at Shengguan Fenglan and said, although we have a bad relationship, in fact, in the depths of Brother Mu's heart, he still cares about me. When he learned that Feng Yuan plotted against me, he did not hesitate to stand up and help me. That's a nice sentence. Mu Tianyang laughed inwardly. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, speaking of which, I really have to thank Feng Yuan. If it weren't for him, I'm afraid that Brother Mu and I wouldn't be able to return to the past. Sheng Guanqiu asked, now, you've buried the hatchet? Yes. We've already discussed it. In the future, we'll split the profits from your treasure school 50-50. And we'll continue the unfinished research. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. What research? Shengguan Fenglan and Sheng Guanqiu were surprised. Before we had a disagreement, we were already researching a kind of elixir that can help war gods break through cultivation. Qin Feiyang said. What are you doing? Are you going to expose the four symbols everlasting elixir? Mu Tianyang discreetly raised his eyebrows and secretly asked. No matter how good the 9 Chu Yellow Dragon elixir and the 9 Transformation Dragon Blood elixir are, it's only useful for people below war gods. For war gods, it's not that tempting. But the 4 symbols everlasting elixir is different. Once this elixir appears, it will definitely cause a mad scramble, especially for the disciples of our 9th Heaven Palace. After all, most of the disciples of our 9th Heaven Palace are war gods. Qin Feiyang said inwardly. It makes sense, I don't object. But we must use the highest price to trade with the treasure pavilion. Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and transmitted his voice to Sheng Guanqiu. Of course. Qin Feiyang replied. A kind of elixir that can help war gods break through cultivation. Shengguan Fenglan and Sheng Guanqiu looked at each other. Wasn't this a little too shocking? Shengguan Fenglan came back to her senses and asked hurriedly, how's your research going? It's almost done. Qin Feiyang nodded. Sheng Guanqiu asked in a hurry, show it to us. Qin Feiyang said, it hasn't been refined yet. I'm missing a kind of herb. What kind of herb? Sheng Guanqiu asked. Qin Feiyang said, white tiger blood essence. White tiger blood essence. Sheng Guanqiu was stunned. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and asked in surprise, did you ask the deputy pavilion master for the Wuji divine fruit and the blood essence of the 4 sacred beasts to refine this kind of elixir? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. This, Sheng Guanqiu was stunned. Then, he shook his head regretfully and said, the treasure pavilion doesn't have the white tiger blood essence at the moment. But if you give me some time, I'm sure I can find it. After all, the treasure pavilion doesn't only exist in the north region. We also have forces in Dongling, western desert, and southern wilderness. Distant water can't put out a nearby fire. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. He looked at Shengguan Fenglan and said, you should know that Feng Yuan raised the requirement to enter the resource hall to target me. Yes. Shengguan Fenglan nodded. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, registration starts the day after tomorrow. There's no time. This, Shengguan Fenglan frowned. Sheng Guanqiu suddenly said, sister, doesn't Feng Yuan have a white tiger divine beast with him? As soon as Sheng Guanqiu said that, Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. He then looked at Shengguan Fenglan. He wanted to know Shengguan Fenglan's reaction. Shengguan Fenglan was stunned. She looked at Sheng Guanqiu and asked suspiciously, you want me to go to Feng Yuan? Yes. Shangguan Qiu nodded. It won't work. Feng Yuan has always seen me as a thorn in his side. How can he give me the white tiger essence blood? Shangguan Fenglan shook her head. Actually, as long as the temple master wants to, Feng Yuan will hand over the white tiger essence blood even if you don't do it yourself. Qin Feiyang smiled. What do you mean? Shangguan Fenglan looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyang said, I won't hide it from you. I've already made a move on Feng Yuan. He will send the white tiger essence blood here in the wee hours of the morning. Made a move. Shangguan Fenglan and Shangguan Qiu looked at each other, their faces full of surprise. We kidnapped Feng Zijuan. Qin Feiyang said. What? The two sisters looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang, stunned. Why are you so surprised? I said that although I have a private deal with Feng Zihan, it doesn't affect my determination to get rid of them. Qin Feiyang smiled. Shangguan Fenglan said in a low voice, You are really bold to do such a thing in the Ninth Heaven Palace. If the temple master doesn't agree, I will send Feng Zijuan back. Anyway, he doesn't know that it was me and Brother Mu who kidnapped him. But temple master, you and Feng Yuan are old rivals. You should know better than me how much Feng Yuan loves Feng Zijuan. If Feng Zijuan is unfortunately killed, you can imagine how big of a blow it will be to Feng Yuan. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Shangguan Fenglan frowned and said, Isn't this a little too despicable? Despicable? Feng Yuan secretly bribed the people of the law enforcement hall to take away your power. Isn't that despicable? Besides, this Feng Zijuan deserved to die. Qin Feiyang said. This, Shangguan Fenglan hesitated. Shangguan Qiu said, Sister, since we are going to deal with him, there is no need to be merciful. Shangguan Fenglan looked at Shangguan Qiu, then looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang. She nodded and said, Okay, you can deal with this matter yourselves. It was tantamount to acquiescence. Mu Tianyang smiled secretly and said, Brother Qin, this is a smart move. You directly dragged them into the water. Qin Feiyang smiled secretly and looked at Shangguan Fenglan. He said, Then after midnight, we will have to trouble the temple master to cover us. Cover? Shangguan Fenglan was suspicious. Feng Yuan has already suspected me of Feng Zijuan's kidnapping. When we entered the city, he had already sent people to follow us. I guess when we return to the Ninth Heaven Palace after the deal, we may be blocked by him at the stairway to heaven. At that time, we will need the temple master to cover us. Qin Feiyang said. He had originally planned to let Shangguan Qiu testify, but now Shangguan Fenglan had taken the initiative to come to him. How could he let her go? Because Shangguan Fenglan's words were more credible than Shangguan Qiu's. Shangguan Fenglan heard this and frowned. She said, Why do I feel like I have been tricked by you? No, no. You just have to cover for us. You can't interfere with anything else. Even if the matter is exposed in the end, it will not implicate you. Qin Feiyang said. I have already covered for you. It will not implicate me. Do you think I am stupid? Shangguan Fenglan was angry. She had really been tricked. Unknowingly, she had been set up. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. Shangguan Fenglan glanced at the two and let out a long breath. She asked, The deal is at midnight, right? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. You don't need me to go? Shangguan Fenglan asked. Yes. Brother Mu and I will go. Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan said, Well, we will stay here until midnight. But I have a condition. What condition? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Shangguan Fenglan said, I want to see you refine the elixir that can help the god of war break through with my own eyes. No problem. Qin Feiyang nodded without hesitation. The temperature and details needed to refine the four symbols infinite divine elixir were not something that could be grasped at a glance. So there was no need to worry about Shangguan Fenglan secretly learning from him. Shangguan Fenglan said, "One last question. What is your relationship with the deputy pavilion master of the treasure school?" Qin Feiyang frowned and turned to look at Shangguan Qiu. Only Shangguan Qiu knew about his meeting with the deputy pavilion master. There was no doubt that she must have told Shangguan Fenglan. Furthermore, he even crippled one of the vice pavilion master's legs. So when the great elder knew that I had a grudge with the vice pavilion master, he couldn't help but be a little angry. Qin Feiyang said lightly. There's such a thing. Mu Tianyang was surprised. Shangguan Fenglan glanced at Mu Tianyang, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice, "How did you know?" Although this matter has been in the past for a long time, it was not a secret back then. As long as you have the heart, it's not difficult to find out. Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan said angrily, "You were also investigating us behind our backs." Sigh. You are all big shots, and I can't afford to offend you, so I can only investigate your background to cater to you. Lest I get killed one day, and I don't even know why. Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan stared at Qin Feiyang with a bone-piercing chill in her eyes. Although she had been in contact with Qin Feiyang in the past, they didn't talk much, so she didn't feel anything. But this time, after talking slowly, she found that this boy had far exceeded her expectations. He was even somewhat out of control. This reminded her of what the great elder had said back then, that a person who couldn't be controlled should be immediately obliterated. But at the same time, after this conversation, she became more and more curious about Qin Feiyang. It was as if there was a kind of magic that attracted her to the mysterious aura that he exuded. According to the great elder, she could take action now. But in her heart, she was a little hesitant. To be exact, she couldn't bear to do it and wanted to see the follow-up development. Phew! A moment later, Shangguan Fenglan took a deep breath, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said, "Again, it's not necessarily a good thing to be too smart." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your reminder, Temple Master. I will keep it in mind." Shangguan Fenglan glanced at him indifferently, then lowered her head in silence. No one knew what she was thinking. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he turned to look at Shangguan Qiu, saying, "Let's talk about our cooperation." "That's what I was thinking." Shangguan Qiu nodded. In fact, this was one of the reasons why she asked Qin Feiyang out this time. After all, the cooperation with Qin Feiyang was the deputy pavilion master's order, so it had to be handled as soon as possible. Qin Feiyang said, "How did you and Brother Mu cooperate before?" 9 Chu Yellow Dragon Elixir, Divine Crystals. 9 Turn Dragon Blood Elixir, Soul Stones. Shangguan Qiu said. Just as I expected. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, and asked, "How much do you pay Brother Mu for refining a 9-turn dragon blood elixir?" 1,000 soul stones. Shangguan Qiu said. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Mu Tianyang. 1,000 soul stones indeed. Mu Tianyang nodded. That's a good price. 1,000 soul stones. 10,000 soul stones. 100 soul stones. 1,000 soul stones. And you don't have to pay for the herbs, you can earn so much just by refining the elixir. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang and smiled. Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes, and said, "No matter how much I earn, I can't compare with you." Qin Feiyang shook his head with a smile, and looked at Shangguan Qiu, saying, "I don't care how you cooperate with Brother Mu, but if you cooperate with me, you have to follow my rules." Shangguan Qiu raised his eyebrows, and said, 1,000 soul stones is the maximum limit of the treasure pavilion. Don't worry, the 9-turn dragon blood elixir will still be 1,000 soul stones per elixir. But you have to use soul stones to trade for the 9-turn dragon elixir. Give me 500 soul stones per elixir. Qin Feiyang said. Why don't you just rob? Sheng Guanqiu was a little annoyed. In fact, he had expected that the 9-turn dragon elixir would be traded with soul stones, but he did not expect the price to be so high. 500 soul stones. This was an exorbitant price. 500 soul stones is not a lot. If the treasure pavilion auctioned with soul stones, one 9-turn dragon elixir would be worth at least tens of thousands. Qin Feiyang said. Sheng Guanqiu said, the treasure pavilion has never used soul stones to bid before. Rules are dead, but people are flexible. As a businessman, you should always be flexible. For elixirs like the 9-turn dragon elixir, using divine crystals to bid for it is simply a waste of its value. Qin Feiyang said. A waste of its value, Sheng Guanqiu murmured. Listening to what this person said, it seemed to make some sense. After all, this elixir was directly related to one's cultivation level. Even if it was auctioned with soul stones, it would still cause a frenzy. After pondering for a while, Sheng Guanqiu exhaled and looked at Qin Feiyang. He nodded and said, okay, deal. Huh, brother Qin is really something. I'm impressed. Mu Tianyang laughed secretly. If the 9-turn dragon elixir was traded with soul stones, there would undoubtedly be a large income in the future. Thinking back to what Mu Qin did in the past, it was really incomparable to this person. Qin Feiyang said to himself, don't be happy too early. You'll be in charge of refining elixirs. Me? Mu Tianyang was stunned. Of course. You want soul stones but don't want to refine elixirs. How can there be such a good deal in the world? Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Leave refining elixirs to me. Mu Tianyang was somewhat helpless. In fact, he did not want to refine elixirs. Because refining elixirs was too time-consuming. However, what Qin Feiyang said made sense. There was no free lunch in the world. If you wanted to get something, you had to pay the price. Of course. He could not refine elixirs himself. After all, Mu Qin was also an elixir alchemist. This kind of thing would definitely be left to Mu Qin. Hearing Mu Tianyang's response, Qin Feiyang looked at Sheng Guanqiu and said with a smile, although we are cooperating now, if you want to make a deal in the future, you should still look for Brother Mu. Look for him. Sheng Guanqiu was slightly stunned and said speechlessly, I really admire you guys. After fighting for so long, you are cooperating in the end. This is called the unpredictable world. Next, let's talk about the Wuji divine fruit and the divine beast blood essence. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Sheng Guanqiu seemed to have been prepared. He took out 3 jade bottles and a rectangular jade box from his interspatial ring. The jade bottles were not big, and there was a little blood in them. The jade box was about half a meter long, and the lid was tightly closed. Looking at the jade bottles and jade boxes, Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang's eyes suddenly lit up. Mu Tianyang could not wait to open the jade box. He saw fruits lying quietly inside. These fruits were only the size of an egg. They were shaped like small gourds, and the surface of the fruits was shining with a crystal-clear divine light. Qin Feiyang also picked up the 3 jade bottles and examined them carefully. The blood was different from ordinary blood. It looked like precious diamonds, shining with a hazy light. Furthermore, when the jade bottle was opened, an extremely strong and pure divine beast's aura immediately surged out. That's right. It's the blood essence of the azure dragon, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise, Qin Feiyang whispered and looked up at Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang said with a smile, 20 Wuji divine fruits. Not one more, not one less. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Sheng Guanqiu. He said, name your price. Sheng Guanqiu pursed his lips and said with a smile, I was going to use divine gems to trade for these things. Looking at the smile on Sheng Guanqiu's face, Qin Feiyang could not help but have a bad feeling. Mu Tianyang glanced at Qin Feiyang and Sheng Guanqiu, as if he was watching a show. Sheng Guanqiu's smile became brighter. He said, "But you just said that a businessman should know how to be flexible. So now, I am going to use soul stones to trade with you." Qin Feiyang's face twitched. Was he slapping himself in the face? Chapter 2065. What do you think? I learned and applied it on the spot. Not bad, right? Sheng Guanqiu teased. Seeing Qin Feiyang being defeated, she felt inexplicably happy. Impressive, impressive. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. If he had known, he would have talked about this deal first before discussing the cooperation. He had dug a hole for himself. Sheng Guanqiu smiled proudly. She had finally won this round. Qin Feiyang collected himself and said, "Tell me, how many soul stones?" 60 drops of essence blood, 100,000 soul stones per drop. As for the Wuji divine fruit, Sheng Guanqiu thought for a while and said with a smile, "I'll give you 100,000 each." You make it sound like you're at a disadvantage. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Mu Tianyang, who had been watching coldly from the side, suddenly said, "Miss, I have a question." "What is it?" Sheng Guanqiu looked at him suspiciously. 1 drop of blood, 100,000 soul stones per drop, and 100,000 soul stones per Wuji divine fruit. And the elixir we're researching needs 4 drops of essence blood and 1 Wuji divine fruit. In other words, just the cost of building it costs 500,000 soul stones. In the future, when we succeed, how much do you plan to bid? Mu Tianyang asked. Even if you bid 1 million soul stones, someone will buy it. After all, this is an elixir that can help the god of war break through. It's not at the same level as the 9 Chu Yellow Dragon elixir and the 9 Transformation Dragon Blood elixir. Sheng Guanqiu smiled confidently. 1 million soul stones. Even in the 9th Heaven Palace, only a few disciples can afford it. Mu Tianyang said. Good things go to the highest bidder. If everyone can afford it, how can it be good? Sheng Guanqiu said. You're indeed a businessman. You're better than anyone else. Mu Tianyang shook his head and smiled. Sheng Guanqiu smiled and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, the total price of 60 drops of blood essence is 6 million, and the total price of 20 Wuji immortal fruits is 2 million. That's a total of 8 million. Young Master Jiang, please pay the bill. 8 million soul stones. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply. Just thinking about it made his heart ache. You even got 4 billion soul stones from Feng Zihan, what are 8 million soul stones to you? Sheng Guanqiu said. People like you who grew up with a silver spoon in their mouths will never understand the life of people like us at the bottom. Back then, forget about 4 billion soul stones, even 40,000 soul stones, no, even 1,000 soul stones was an astronomical figure to me. Qin Feiyang sighed. Sheng Guanqiu smiled and said, I've never experienced this feeling before. That's why I said you don't understand. But since it's a business deal, I naturally can't go back on my word. Qin Feiyang smiled and secretly transmitted his voice, Old Zhao, help me count out 8 million soul stones. All right. Zhao Tailai responded. Very soon. Qin Feiyang took out an interspatial ring and threw it to Sheng Guanqiu. Sheng Guanqiu carefully counted it and put it away with a smile on his face. Qin Feiyang also sent the blood essence and the Wuji divine fruit into the ancient castle. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, now we only need the white tiger blood essence. I really hope that midnight will come soon. You can't rush it. Just wait and see. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. They're still in Yulon Tower? In the resource hall. Feng Yuan looked at Feng Wenhai's shadow and frowned. Yes. Feng Wenhai nodded. Is it really not them? Feng Yuan muttered. Father, can we leave Jiang Haotian alone for now? Saving Zijuan is more important. Feng Wenhai said. Feng Yuan frowned and said angrily, didn't I investigate Jiang Haotian to save Zijuan? Feng Wenhai said, but now it's proven that it's not them. Why are you still thinking about these questions? Don't worry. I've already prepared the white tiger blood essence. I'll just wait for midnight to come and trade with them. Feng Yuan said. Feng Wenhai asked, then do you want me to find someone to ambush them in advance? With this old man taking action personally, do you still need others? Besides, if even this old man can't keep them, then the people you sent will be even more useless. Don't worry about this matter. This old man will handle it. You just wait for the news at home. Feng Yuan said. Okay. Feng Wenhai nodded. At this moment, whether it was Qin Feiyang and the others or the people of the Feng family, they all felt that time was passing very slowly. It was clearly only a few hours, but it felt like a few centuries had passed. Amidst the torturous wait, dawn finally arrived. In the private room, Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other and suddenly stood up. During this period of time, Shangguan Fenglan had been resting with her eyes closed. When she heard the commotion, she opened her eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang and Feng Yu. She asked, Feng Yuan's strength is not inferior to mine. Can you two really do it? If the hall master can come in person, we naturally can't ask for more. Mu Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing this, Shangguan Fenglan did not even reply and directly closed her eyes. Hypocrite. Mu Tianyang secretly said. Get used to it. Qin Feiyang patted him on the shoulder, took out 2 illusory pills, casually changed his appearance, and entered the Black Tortoise world, flying toward the West City Gate. In the early morning, even in the city, it was difficult to see many people, let alone outside the city. The plains outside the West City Gate were quiet. Coming to the sky above the plains, Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were not in a hurry to show up. They had been looking for traces of Feng Yuan. Because they were worried that Feng Yuan might be hiding in the dark and catch them off guard when they were not paying attention. In short, before they saw Feng Yuan, they would never go out first. And in the end, they searched the entire plains outside the West City Gate but did not find Feng Yuan. This old thing, is he not here yet? Mu Tianyang frowned. This is related to Feng Zijuan's life and death, how could he dare to be negligent? I think he should be the same as us now, hiding in the space divine object, monitoring the movements outside. Qin Feiyang scanned the night sky. It seemed that this old thing would not obediently hand over the white tiger blood essence. Then go out and search with your spirit sense. Mu Tianyang laughed. With Feng Yuan's status and strength, do you think he won't have the hidden soul stone? Qin Feiyang sneered. Then we can't just stay here and do nothing. Mu Tianyang said. Don't worry. He can't outlast us. Unless he doesn't want to save Feng Zijuan. Qin Feiyang sneered. Next. The two stood in the Black Tortoise world, quietly waiting. Sure enough, it was as Qin Feiyang had expected. About a moment later, a red-haired old man appeared in the sky above the plains. Who else could it be but Feng Yuan? He looked around and frowned, what's going on? Why haven't you come yet? Didn't you just come now? But before his voice faded, a mocking laugh sounded behind him. Feng Yuan was slightly taken aback and quickly turned to look, only to see 2 big men standing in the void not far away. These 2 big men were naturally Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang after changing their appearances. The clothes of the 9 Heavens Palace had also been changed, and they were all wearing black clothes. Feng Yuan looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice, when did you guys come? Qin Feiyang said, "You should have come before us." "Then why are you hiding? Let me wait for so long." Feng Yuan said angrily. "Aren't you hiding too?" Qin Feiyang looked at him mockingly. Feng Yuan's heart trembled. He actually guessed his thoughts. It seemed that these two people were not ordinary people. "This is definitely not your true appearance. Who are you?" Feng Yuan said in a deep voice. Hall Master Feng Yuan is indeed smart. But do you think we will be stupid enough to tell you our true identity? Qin Feiyang laughed contemptuously. Feng Yuan clenched his hands, holding back his anger, and asked, "Where is Feng Zijuan? Where is the thing we want?" Qin Feiyang did not answer, but asked instead. Feng Yuan took out a jade bottle from his bosom, which was half filled with blood, and said, 20 drops of white tiger blood essence, not a drop less." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he stretched out his hand, "Let me verify." Feng Yuan said, "Give me Feng Zijuan first." "Impossible. Your cultivation is so strong. If I give you Feng Zijuan first, what if you go back on your words?" Qin Feiyang said. Feng Yuan said, "Then this old man is also worried that you will go back on your words after getting the white tiger blood essence. If this stalemate continues, it will not be good for you. How about this, let me show you something first." Qin Feiyang took out Feng Zijuan's universe ring and threw it to Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan caught it in his hand, looked down, and his face immediately darkened. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "I believe you are familiar with this universe ring. If you dare to harm even a single hair on his head, then even if you can fly, this old man will still kill you." Feng Yuan said fiercely. "Don't worry. As long as you give me the white tiger blood essence, I promise to give you a healthy Feng Zijuan." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "You want this old man to hand over the blood essence first?" "Never. How about this, let's exchange the person and the goods at the same time." Feng Yuan said. "No, no, no. Your cultivation is too strong. If we capture Feng Zijuan and you directly release your pressure to imprison us, won't we become lambs waiting to be slaughtered? It seems that you are not sincere at all. In that case, this deal is off. As for Feng Zijuan, you can wait to collect his corpse." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly, grabbed Mu Tianyang and disappeared without a trace. "Wait. This old man will give it to you." Feng Yuan's expression changed and he quickly shouted. Qin Feiyang and Feng Yuan appeared out of thin air with smiles on their faces. "Give it to me," Qin Feiyang said as he stretched out his hand. Feng Yuan waved his hand and the jade bottle in his hand immediately turned into a stream of light and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed it in his hand and opened the bottle cap. A terrifying aura suddenly roared out. This was the aura of the divine beast White Tiger. Mu Tianyang said with a smile, "This is the White Tiger blood essence." "Thank you, Hall Master Feng Yuan. Wait here, we will bring Feng Zijuan out immediately." Qin Feiyang laughed and brought Mu Tianyang to the Black Tortoise Realm's herb field. He immediately controlled the Black Tortoise Realm and flew away like lightning. Outside, seeing the two disappear again, Feng Yuan immediately released his divine sense and enveloped the surroundings. But he couldn't find anything in the void. Could it be that he has also merged with the hidden soul stone? Feng Yuan frowned. But then, a trace of ridicule crept up in his eyes as he thought to himself, "You think you can escape from this old man's palm with the hidden soul stone? When Zijuan appears, it will be your time of death." However, he didn't know that the Black Tortoise Realm had already entered Sky Dragon City. Shengguan Fenglan nodded, forcibly swept up Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang, and then rose into the air, disappearing into the night sky like lightning. Ninth Heaven Palace. In front of the stairway, Feng Yuan stood on the first step, his face gloomy. Feng Zihan stood by the side, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Whoosh! Suddenly, accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, 3 young men flew to the top of the mountain. Greetings, Temple Master. Greetings, Senior Sister Zihan. The 3 of them were inner disciples of Ninth Heaven Palace, and they had the cultivation of a half-step divine lord. When they saw Feng Yuan and Feng Zihan, they were first stunned, then quickly ran over and bowed. Feng Yuan glanced at the 3 of them and said, "Where did you come from?" "Outside." The 3 of them were a little puzzled. What did that mean? "Be specific." Feng Yuan shouted. "We just came back from the Sky Dragon Sea." The 3 of them quickly said. "Experience? Since it's an experience, why are there no wounds on your body, no blood stains?" Feng Yuan said angrily. The 3 of them were depressed to the extreme. What kind of question was that? "Speak." Feng Yuan shouted angrily. "Yes, yes, yes. Normally, disciples like us who go to the Sky Dragon Sea to experience will wash off the blood stains on our bodies before coming back. Firstly, we are afraid of dirtying the stairway, and secondly, we pay attention to our image. As for the wounds, of course there are. We will take off our clothes now for you to check." As the 3 of them spoke, they took off their clothes. Their upper bodies were indeed full of scars. Feng Zihan swept a glance at those scars, looked at Feng Yuan and said, "Grandfather, they are fine. You believe so much that their injuries were caused in the Heavenly Dragon Sea. What if they did it on purpose?" Feng Yuan said angrily. Feng Zihan sighed. Now, her grandfather had already lost his mind a little. The 3 disciples also looked at each other. Who would purposely injure themselves? Was this Feng Yuan crazy today? But this kind of thing, they absolutely did not dare to say it out. Feng Yuan looked at the 3 of them and asked, "Is there a witness to prove that you were in the Sky Dragon Sea?" Witness? The 3 of them could not help but be annoyed in their hearts. If it were not because the people standing in front of them were Feng Yuan and Feng Zihan, they would definitely fly off the handle on the spot. It was simply inexplicable. The 3 of us have always been together, we can prove each other. As for the other witnesses, if Lord Hall Master does not believe, you can personally go to the Sky Dragon Sea to ask. Because during this period of experience, many people have seen us. The 3 of them held back their anger and said respectfully. "Have you eaten the guts of a leopard? You actually dare to make this old man go to the Sky Dragon Sea personally? Do you know that your current attitude is already enough to give this old man a reason to kill you on the spot?" Feng Yuan shouted. "Disciple knows his mistake, Lord Hall Master, please spare our lives." The 3 of them quivered and hurriedly knelt on the ground, begging. Feng Zijuan also hurriedly advised, "Grandfather, you are a little too anxious now, calm down." "Shut up." Feng Yuan completely did not listen, looked at the 3 of them, and said, "Stand to the side for this old man, without this old man's permission, you are not allowed to take half a step away." "Yes." The 3 of them nodded, hurriedly got up and ran to the side of the sky stairway, standing there respectfully. Next, a few more batches of disciples came and were stopped at the bottom of the sky stairway. Like the 3 of them, they were stopped for no reason, and their hearts were extremely puzzled. But after all, it was Feng Yuan. Even if they had resentment in their hearts, they did not dare to show it. Not long after, Shengguan Fenglan brought Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang, and finally arrived at the sky stairway. As soon as she saw the situation at the top of the mountain, Shengguan Fenglan knew what was going on. Feng Zijuan was also surprised in his heart. Why would Jiang Haotian and Mu Tianyang be together with Shengguan Fenglan? Those disciples who were stopped at the bottom of the sky stairway were also stunned. And Feng Yuan. The moment he saw Qin Feiyang, a strong killing intent emerged in his eyes. Feeling Feng Yuan's killing intent, Feng Zihan's eyelids twitched, and he transmitted his voice, "Grandfather, Shangguan Fenglan is here, calm down." It was fine if Feng Zihan did not say it, but when he said it, Feng Yuan's eyes immediately surged with hostility. Shangguan Fenglan brought Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang to land in front of the sky stairway, looked at those disciples, and asked suspiciously, "Feng Yuan, what are you doing?" "Lord Hall Master, we did not do anything wrong. But for some reason, we were stopped here by Hall Master Feng Yuan." As soon as Shangguan Fenglan spoke, those disciples were like grasping at straws, running to Shangguan Fenglan's side and chattering non-stop. "Stopped for no reason." Shangguan Fenglan frowned. Feng Yuan said in a deep voice, "Shangguan Fenglan, why are you with Jiang Haotian and Mu Tianyang?" Shangguan Fenglan was stunned and looked at Feng Yuan. "What do you mean by this? Do I need to report to you who I'm with?" Feng Yuan clenched his hands and shouted, "Today, you must explain clearly." Shangguan Fenglan's eyes turned cold, and she said, "Feng Yuan, don't go too far, I'm not a disciple of Nine Heavens Palace, you don't have the qualifications to control me. The dignified hall master of the law enforcement hall is actually with two drunk disciples, this doesn't make sense no matter how you look at it." Feng Yuan sneered. "It has something to do with you. Get out of my way." Shangguan Fenglan took a step forward and looked straight at Feng Yuan, a bone-piercing sharpness in her eyes. Boom! Feng Yuan also directly released his aura, confronting Shangguan Fenglan. Feng Zihan was burning with anxiety, and he bowed, "Hall Master, please calm down." "Calm down." Shangguan Fenglan smiled coldly. "In Nine Heavens Palace, apart from the two palace masters, there are only 10 elders who dare to stop me like this. Moreover, Feng Yuan is only the hall master of the resource hall, logically speaking, he doesn't have the authority to interrogate the disciples under him." "Yes, yes, yes. We all know that the law enforcement hall has the authority to interrogate disciples. My grandfather is indeed in the wrong, but there is a reason for this. Please understand, Hall Master." Feng Zihan said. "There is a reason for this?" Shangguan Fenglan was suspicious. "Yes." Feng Zihan nodded, pondered for a while, and sighed, "This matter is related to my little brother, Feng Zijuan." "What do you mean?" Shangguan Fenglan asked. Feng Zihan said, "Zijuan was kidnapped." "What? Feng Zijuan was kidnapped? When did this happen? Why is there no news at all?" The disciples surrounding Shangguan Fenglan were all shocked. Shangguan Fenglan also revealed a look of disbelief, frowning, "Isn't Feng Zijuan always in Nine Heavens Palace, how could he be kidnapped? Moreover, such a big matter, it's impossible for there to be no news at all." Feng Zihan turned to look at Feng Yuan, and said, "Grandfather, give me that letter." Feng Yuan stared at the drunk Qin Feiyang, and said in a deep voice, "There's no need to think, this matter must have something to do with him." Feng Zihan's face changed, and secretly said, "Grandfather, there's no evidence, don't talk nonsense." Feng Yuan shouted, "Other than Jiang Haotian, who in Nine Heavens Palace has such guts? Who's calling me?" Qin Feiyang suddenly quivered, raised his head and scanned the surroundings, his eyes full of confusion. Finally, he suddenly stared at Feng Zihan, and laughed, "Isn't this senior sister Zihan? Why have you come to Yulan Tower? Come come come, let's have a few drinks." Shangguan Fenglan's face darkened. Feng Zihan couldn't help but frown. Calling Mu Tianyang, quickly answer me, where are you? It's not over yet, why did you run away? Qin Feiyang called out. I'm behind you. Mu Tianyang grabbed onto Qin Feiyang's shoulder, and rested his chin on Qin Feiyang's shoulder. He also looked at Feng Zihan with drunken eyes, and said, yes, yes, yes. It's senior sister Zihan, fortunately. No, it's a pleasure to meet you, do you want to have a few drinks? Wait, where are we? This doesn't seem to be the Yulon restaurant. Brother Jiang, you wouldn't have taken me to a brothel while I was drunk, right? Mu Tianyang hugged onto Qin Feiyang's arm, and looked around in a drunken stupor, laughing extremely wretchedly. Brothel? Chapter 2067. Looking at Feng Yuan and Qin Feiyang lying on the ground, he was about to go mad with anger. He hated Qin Feiyang to the bone. But now, he was drunk to this extent. What was going on? Feng Zihan calmed himself down and looked at Feng Yuan. Grandfather, now is not the time to act on impulse. Quickly take out the letter. Feng Yuan took a deep breath and took out the letter. Feng Zihan took it and handed it to Shangguan Fenglan with both hands. Shangguan Fenglan took the letter and read it carefully. The disciples behind her also stood on their tiptoes and looked at it curiously. He really was kidnapped, Shangguan Fenglan murmured. According to my grandfather, this letter was sent to the resource hall by someone. To be able to enter the resource hall to send a letter, it must be someone from our Empyrean palace. Previously, my grandfather was invited to the west gate of Sky Dragon City to trade, but the two who kidnapped my brother went back on their word after receiving the white tiger blood essence. That's why my grandfather and I are here to check the disciples who came back. Feng Zihan explained. I see. Shangguan Fenglan sighed. I am the hall master of Empyrean Palace's law enforcement hall. I can't escape the blame for such a thing happening in Empyrean Palace, but you should have told me about it immediately. We couldn't do anything about it. It's written clearly that if anyone dares to spread it, they will be killed. Feng Zihan said. Understandable. Shangguan Fenglan nodded with a smile. But Jiang Haotian and Qin Feiyang really have nothing to do with this matter. They have been in Yulon Pavilion since the evening and have never left my sight. Hall Master, may I ask why you were with them in Yulon Pavilion? Feng Zihan was suspicious. To tell you the truth, I was ordered by the First Elder to investigate their origins. And this time, I invited them to Yulon Pavilion to get them drunk so that they would tell the truth. But I didn't expect them to be so drunk. Shangguan Fenglan smiled bitterly. Feng Zihan asked, did they tell you where they came from? Yes. Shangguan Fenglan just nodded and didn't say anything else. She returned the letter to Feng Zihan. Then what are their origins? Feng Zihan was curious. Shangguan Fenglan raised her eyebrows and said, Zihan, as the first on the heaven list, you should know what to ask and what not to ask. Disciple knows his mistake. Feng Zihan hurriedly bowed. I'm fine. Shangguan Fenglan waved her hand. She looked at Feng Yuan and said, don't worry. I will also help to deal with Feng Zijuan's matter. What help? This is the responsibility of the Law Enforcement Hall. Feng Yuan said furiously. I don't deny it. But you didn't tell me right away. I can completely ignore a situation like this. Shangguan Fenglan snorted. You, Feng Yuan was furious. Grandfather. You flatter me. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other and hurriedly smiled. Are you guys acting with me too? Shangguan Fenglan looked at the two of them with ill intentions. No, no. The two of them waved their hands repeatedly, extremely terrified. It's best if you don't. Shangguan Fenglan snorted coldly and said, I'll go arrange it. You guys should also hurry up and prepare. When I come back, I'll start refining pills. You really want to send someone to assist Feng Yuan? Qin Feiyang was surprised. I still have to do it on the surface. After all, my law enforcement hall exists to maintain the order of the Nine Heavens Palace. After Shangguan Fenglan finished speaking, she turned around and walked out quickly. After Shangguan Fenglan left, Mu Tianyang waved his hand and closed the cave's stone door. He smiled and said, I really didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Qin Feiyang said, this is also because of the Black Tortoise realm. That's true. Mu Tianyang nodded and reminded, then Feng Zijuan, you must remember to get rid of him. I know. When the time comes, I will send the corpse to Feng Yuan. Qin Feiyang sneered. Ugh. Mu Tianyang was stunned. What a cruel guy. Dong. Suddenly. There was a knock on the door. So fast. The two of them looked at each other and then opened the stone door. They were immediately stunned. They originally thought it was Shengguan Fenglan, but it turned out to be a young man standing at the door. Brother Jiang. The young man raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang. His face was full of stubble and his hair was messy. There was also a smell of alcohol on his body, mixed with a stench. His expression was also extremely haggard. Qin Feiyang glanced at the young man and said with a faint smile, come in. The young man was Gongzi Feng. Gongzi Feng walked into the cave and closed the stone door behind him. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, how long has it been since you took a bath? Gongzi Feng was stunned. He lowered his head and looked at himself. He smiled bitterly and said, I've embarrassed myself in front of Brother Jiang. Then. He looked at Mu Tianyang and said, Brother Mu is also here. Mu Tianyang nodded. Qin Feiyang pointed to the seat and said, sit. No need. Gongzi Feng shook his head and glanced at Mu Tianyang. He lowered his head and pondered. Qin Feiyang said, what do you want to know? After a long time, Gongzi Feng raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, is it convenient to talk? Just say it. Qin Feiyang said. Gongzi Feng said, I'm here to ask if Feng Zijuan's kidnapping has anything to do with Brother Jiang. Qin Feiyang was not surprised at all. Because he really couldn't think of any other reason why Gongzi Feng came to him. This person's position is not stable. We can't tell him. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice. I know. Qin Feiyang secretly responded. He looked at Gongzi Feng and said, if I say that it has something to do with me, will you tell your grandfather? I won't. Gongzi Feng shook his head without hesitation. Why? Qin Feiyang was surprised. I hate them. Right now, I wish I could kill them with my own hands. Gongzi Feng clenched his hands tightly, his face full of resentment. Wait. Didn't you plead for Feng Wenhai last time? Why did you suddenly become like this? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Of course, he knew the reason, but he wanted Gongzi Feng to say it himself. Let's not talk about it. In short, I hate the Feng family, I hate Feng Yuan. Gongzi Feng knelt on the ground with a thud. Qin Feiyang and Gongzi Feng looked at each other and asked, what do you mean by this? Gongzi Feng said, I want to ask Brother Jiang to help me kill Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai. This, Qin Feiyang was still somewhat unable to adapt to Gongzi Feng's sudden change. Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and said secretly, if his position is firm enough, then we can help him. After all, having him as a spy is also beneficial to us. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice, of course, I know this. But to be honest, I can't really trust this person. Mu Tianyang said, in that case, let's test him and let him kill Feng Zijuan. Kill Feng Zijuan. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered as he looked at Gongzi Feng and said, how about this, we still have some things to do. You can go back now and come find me tomorrow night. Okay. Gongzi Feng nodded and smiled at Mu Tianyang before turning to leave. Mu Tianyang shook his head and sighed, to be honest, I feel a little sorry for him. What can we do? Blame Feng Yuan? Actually, it's not his fault. After all, for a rich and powerful family like the Feng family, letting a prostitute into the family is indeed a disgrace. Blame Gongzi Feng's mother? Not really. Because she became a prostitute for the sake of living, for the sake of survival. If you really want to blame someone, you can only blame Foam Wen Hai. An irresponsible man, a cold-blooded beast. Even if he doesn't approve, he shouldn't have killed Gong Zifeng's mother. Qin Feiyang said. Irresponsible, Mu Tianyang muttered as if he was immersed in his memories. I don't even have the chance to be responsible for a woman. This person clearly has her, but he doesn't cherish her at all. He really deserves to be killed. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Mu Tianyang and said, I've always wanted to ask you a question. What question? Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, Are you sincere to Shenmei? Nonsense. I can even kneel down for her. How can I not be sincere? Mu Tianyang said. Then why do you like her? Qin Feiyang was curious. Mu Tianyang said, because she looks very much like a woman in the past. In the past? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Back then, when I was still the emperor of the Tianyang Empire, I had a harem of 3,000 women, each of whom was devastatingly beautiful, but the one I liked the most was a maid who served me. She was very sensible and very good at comforting people. Every time I encountered trouble, she was the one who counseled me. Slowly, I fell in love with her. At that time, I wanted to let her enter the harem several times, give her a status, and be with me openly. But she was unwilling. She said that there was too much intrigue in the harem, and she didn't like that kind of life. As long as she could accompany me, she would be satisfied. I didn't force her. That was the best period of my life, but it didn't last long. Then one day, she left the imperial palace to go home to visit her family. Unfortunately, she was killed on the way. Mu Tianyang sighed. Qin Feiyang said in surprise, I didn't expect a tyrant like you to have such a gentle side. In this world, who doesn't have a gentle side? Mu Tianyang shook his head and said with a smile. Qin Feiyang said, so when you saw Shenmei, you fell in love with her? Yes. Mu Tianyang nodded. Qin Feiyang said, then you must hate me very much now. Of course. If it weren't for you and the inner demons, she wouldn't have died. Mu Tianyang said, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Qin Feiyang sneered, but you have to know that if it weren't for me, you would have been smashed to pieces. Yes. The fact that you saved me will never be erased. But that's that. I won't let Shenmei's death go just like that. Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, as long as you don't target the people around me, I don't care how you treat me. Don't worry, I'm not that despicable. But it's hard to say about Guosweki. Mu Tianyang smiled mockingly. If anyone dares to hurt the people around me, I will send them to hell. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. Mu Tianyang looked at him deeply and said, let's not talk about this anymore. Hurry up and take out the furnace and fire. Get ready to start refining. Qin Feiyang nodded, entered the castle, and carefully studied the refining process and details of the four symbols infinite divine pill. Then, he left the castle with the netherworld devil flame and the azure phoenix cauldron and entered the refining room. Open the furnace and refine the pills. Mu Tianyang urged somewhat anxiously. Not waiting for Shengguan Fenglan. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and asked. Why wait for her? Mu Tianyang pursed his lips. I don't dare. She said to wait for her. If she comes back and sees that we have refined the pill, she will definitely fly into a rage. I can't bear the anger of this woman. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Ah. When did you, Qin Feiyang, get scared? Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise, as if he had discovered a new continent. People under the eaves have to bow their heads. Let's wait for her to come back. Qin Feiyang sighed, took out 4 kinds of blood essence and the infinite divine fruit, and placed them one by one on the refining table. About half an hour passed. Shengguan Fenglan finally came to the cave residence. Qin Feiyang closed the stone door, stood in front of the furnace, and closed his eyes. Shengguan Fenglan glanced at Qin Feiyang, then looked at Mu Tianyang and said, "He really knows how to refine pills." "Of course. He is an alchemy genius in our area." Mu Tianyang said proudly. "An alchemy genius? I really can't tell." Shengguan Fenglan shook her head and asked, "What about you?" "Me?" Mu Tianyang was taken aback and said with a smile, "So." A moment later, Qin Feiyang slowly opened his eyes, and his whole person had entered the state of heart as still as water. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, a wave of mind power emerged. What? This mind power? Shengguan Fenglan was immediately dumbfounded. Mu Tianyang was also a little surprised and said to himself, his mind power has reached at least level 50 or 60. Level 50 or 60 mind power, Shengguan Fenglan was shocked. Even in the Nine Heavens Palace, it was rare to see someone with such high mental strength. Chapter 2068. She had really underestimated this person. Not only was he smart, his talent was terrifying, even his mental strength was terrifying. Even in Zhoutian Palace, he would be a monstrous figure. Suddenly, Shengguan Fenglan seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Mu Tianyang and asked, "Do you know what's going on with his cultivation?" Cultivation? Mu Tianyang was stunned. "I remember when he first entered Zhoutian Palace, he was only a low-level war god. But how long has it been, he actually broke through to perfect war god. And Jiang Rushuang, she also broke through to advanced war god at an outrageous speed." Shengguan Fenglan said. "So that's what you're asking?" Mu Tianyang nodded in realization and laughed secretly. "This question, I'll let him answer you personally later." Shengguan Fenglan raised her eyebrows, looking extremely displeased. Mu Tianyang didn't say anything else and focused on Qin Feiyang. Shengguan Fenglan asked suspiciously, "Aren't you going to help?" "What can I help with?" Mu Tianyang was puzzled. "These pills were jointly researched by you. Without your help, can he refine them?" Shengguan Fenglan asked. "No need. I believe he can handle it alone." Mu Tianyang smiled secretly. While the two were talking, Qin Feiyang had already awakened the nether devil flame. The bottom of the azure phoenix cauldron was burning red. Qin Feiyang first used his mental strength to roll up a Wuxia immortal fruit and put it into the cauldron. Under the high temperature, the Wuxia immortal fruit gradually melted. Not long after, a drop of spirit liquid the size of a pellet appeared. It was crystal clear and flickered with a hazy glow. Among them, there was a strong fruity fragrance. Following closely, after adjusting the temperature, Qin Feiyang began to refine the blood essence of the four divine beasts one by one. "It's that simple." Shengguan Fenglan was surprised. "Simple?" Mu Tianyang was stunned and shook his head speechlessly. "Look at his forehead." Shengguan Fenglan looked at Qin Feiyang's forehead and found that it was already drenched in sweat. Mu Tianyang curiously transmitted his voice, "Dare I ask the Hall Master, do you know how to refine pills?" Shengguan Fenglan shook her head. "No wonder." Mu Tianyang mumbled. This was what a layman was saying. Concocting pills looked very simple. You just have to throw the medicinal ingredients into the pill furnace and extract the spiritual liquid to condense it into a pill. But in fact, whether it was the details, the steps, the heat, or the mentality, there could not be the slightest mistake. Especially for pills like the Four Symbols Infinite Divine Pellet, the slightest mistake would cause it to be scrapped or even explode. Therefore, when refining this kind of pill, only the person who refined it would know how hard and how difficult it was. As for Qin Feiyang, the reason why he was able to refine the spiritual liquid so smoothly was that he had already memorized the pill recipe. The pill formulas in the pill codex were not only comprehensive, they were even more detailed and specific than the pill formulas that were circulated outside. It was no exaggeration to say that even an alchemist with poor aptitude could become a genius in alchemy after obtaining the alchemy scripture. On the other hand, as for refining pills, Qin Feiyang had long been practiced to the point of perfection. Just what level of perfection had he reached? It could be said that, now that he had refined the pill once, he could refine it again even with his eyes closed in the future. Moreover, he was also very familiar with the nether devil flame. An alchemist who wanted to refine a good pill not only needed a strong mental force and a high-level pill furnace, but also had to be one with the pill fire. And Qin Feiyang had been using the nether devil flame to refine pills all these years. Over the years, he had already formed an inseparable bond with the nether devil flame. It was as if it was a part of his body. More importantly, it was his state of mind. His state of mind was stable enough. When refining pills, as long as no one deliberately disturbed him, he would not be distracted at all. About a moment later, the blood essence of the 4 divine beasts had also been refined, and now there was not the slightest smell of blood. Not only was there no smell of blood, but there was also a delicate fragrance. Moreover, there was no innate murderous aura and hostility of fierce beasts. It looked like 4 blood diamonds, blooming with brilliant brilliance. The next step was to fuse the spiritual liquid. He was very careful. After all, whether it was the everlasting divine fruit or the blood essence of the 4 divine beasts, they were all very difficult to find. If it was accidentally scrapped, it would be a huge loss. Soon, a blood-red light swept out of the Qinghuan cauldron like lightning. Qin Feiyang ignored the sweat on his forehead and hurriedly reached out to grab it. Mu Tianyang and Shangguan Fenglan were also at the same time, quickly walking to Qin Feiyang's side. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them and slowly opened his hand. A medicinal pill the size of a finger immediately appeared. The pill was blood-red in color. The 9 pill patterns were like 9 halos, emitting a dazzling divine light. What? 9 pill patterns? Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. Mu Tianyang's face was full of ecstasy. The 4 symbols everlasting divine pill was the same as the 9 transformation dragon blood pill. The more pill patterns there were, the higher the success rate. In other words, 9 pill patterns, there was a full 90% success rate. With such a high success rate, unless one was extremely unlucky, it was impossible to fail. Let me try first. Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Mu Tianyang's aura had already soared to the peak of perfect war god, only 1 step away from perfect war god. However, it was also at this moment that Mu Tianyang's skyrocketing aura came to an abrupt stop. The cracks on his skin, the pain on his face, also slowly calmed down. This? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Mu Tianyang also froze on the spot. It actually failed. This was 9 pill patterns, the success rate was as high as 90%, and it actually failed. Brother Qin, it seems that I'm that kind of unlucky person. Mu Tianyang secretly smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips and secretly said, if you still fail with a 90% chance, then it's not bad luck, it's bad character. Mu Tianyang helplessly took out a healing pill, threw it into his mouth, and said, refine another one. We agreed beforehand, you only need 3. Now that you've taken 1, there are only 2 left. Qin Feiyang said. Ah. Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang in shock, and secretly said, you're a man, do you have to be so stingy? It's not a matter of being stingy. It's a principle. Since we've already agreed beforehand, then naturally, we have to keep our promise. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Mu Tianyang was extremely angry, but he quickly compromised, and with a pleading tone, he said, just give me 1 more, I promise, if I fail again, I won't ask you for it. This, Qin Feiyang was a little hesitant. You see, we've been together for so long, I've never begged you so humbly. Mu Tianyang secretly said. All right. Looking at your pitiful look, I'll give you one more, but it won't happen again. Qin Feiyang said. It won't happen again, it won't happen again. Mu Tianyang said repeatedly, overjoyed. Shengguan Fenglan looked at the two and frowned. What are you guys doing in secret? Is there anything that I can't know? No, no. I'm just comforting him in secret. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand. Yes, yes, yes. Mu Tianyang also nodded repeatedly. Looking at the expressions of the two, Shengguan Fenglan sneered. This was obviously an excuse to brush her off. She looked at the two and asked, Do you want to continue? Of course. Qin Feiyang said without hesitation. That's right. We're not the kind of people who give up halfway. Mu Tianyang followed with a determined light in his eyes. All right. Then I'll see if you can succeed. After Shengguan Fenglan finished speaking, she retreated to the side. There was a hint of ridicule in her eyes, as if she was mocking Qin Feiyang for being too naive. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang didn't notice. But even if they did, with their current temperament, they wouldn't care. Qin Feiyang turned and walked to the front of the pill furnace, took out another Wuji divine fruit and 4 drops of essence blood. The same process, the same refining method. A moment later. The second Wuji divine pill was out. Qin Feiyang grabbed the pill and handed it to Mu Tianyang. I know, I don't need you to remind me. Mu Tianyang was extremely angry. If Qin Feiyang wasn't here to watch the joke, he wouldn't be so angry. But it just had to happen in front of Qin Feiyang. To him, this was like a humiliation. It made him very embarrassed and lose face.